I'm just gonna send it.
Yeah, let's just do it.
Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Why are we waiting around, man?
I just want to see if my thing posted.
Did it post?
Yeah.
Hey, everybody, let me know if audio's coming through. I'm doing a different setup. We're doing an in-person interview. Hey, Val, how are you, man?
Good. How you doing, Nick?
Doing all right. You have a good day?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Pretty good day. Just got off from work. Did a little bit of apologetics today. You guys, my name is Val. Valorthodoxia everywhere. Is my volume low?
I don't know.
Guest
It's
is low.
quiet. Guest is low. Can you hear me? Audio good. Guest is low. Well,
I guess let's turn it up.
does that sound better? I just changed the levels.
Am I good, guys? Do I just have to get closer?
Maybe. Could be.
All right. Anyways, so Val Orthodoxia everywhere. Mostly active on Instagram. I posted a question yesterday. What is your favorite heresy? So I was responding to a bunch of people today, and I got like so many low tier. I didn't know this many like low. I don't want to be rude to all my followers, but I'm like constantly roasting them. So many low brain cell count responses, like people just inventing their own heresies. And I was looking for like specific heresies, historical heresies, and people just coming up like, there was some weird ones. One guy, I think he was a charismatic. He's like putting limitations on God when this and that. And I was like, dude, what? Like, did you just wanted to get something off your chest? So you just like invented a heresy?
Putting limitations on God. Because
Yeah.
like people often think like omnipotence means God can do anything he wants, but he can't violate his own nature. So it's kind of like when people say like, can God lift a rock so heavy that God couldn't lift it? Could he create
Yeah.
that? It's like, well, yeah, that's kind of a category error. Like
Yeah,
God precedes all of existence.
Yeah.
So it's
It is.
not really an intelligent question.
Yeah, it is. I think it's very common with a lot of charismatic Christians because they feel like more traditional Christianity or historic Christianity puts quote unquote limitations on God in terms of
Right. like the worship and the ecclesiology.
worship,
and-
ecclesiology, healings, things like that, speaking into whatever it is, speaking in tongues. I mean, that's usually what they mean.
or even like our exclusivist claim of being the one true church. Oh, like you're saying you're putting God in a box. He's in your religion. He's not everywhere. It's like that's oftentimes people, when you hear when a Protestant hears the Orthodox Church is the one true church, they think that means everyone else is going to hell. Like, even I have family members that assumed that, and I'm like, no, that when I'm not a Calvinist or whatever, like I'm not saying that everyone else is not elect. I'm just saying this is the body of Christ. Nothing else is the body of Christ. I'm not Christ. I don't get to say who is and who isn't going to hell.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
that's not me.
Yeah, it's a triggering statement when you say that, when you tell Protestants that the Orthodox Church is the one true church, because they do feel like they're being condemned to hell.
Right.
And they kind of they love to play this sort of emotional. It's this emotional appeal, essentially what it is. I've had many conversations with Protestants, and that's like the question they ask is like, so I'm a Baptist. Am I going to hell? I'm
Yeah.
a Presbyterian. Am I going to
Or
hell?
they'll word it in like the other kind of like the positive language instead of the negative. Like instead of going to hell, what do I need to do to be saved? Like what's the minimum? What are the essentials of faith?
Yeah.
If I profess with my lips, does that mean I'm saved? They want to get to the common denominator, mere Christianity.
Yep. Yeah, it's this lowest common denominator. Like, how can I scrape by to make it? And it's like, I mean, we know where the truth is. We don't know where the truth is, and it was what was the bishop's name? It was an English bishop that said that.
That's somewhat of a controversial statement.
it
We
is.
know
It is.
where the
That's
Holy
why-
Spirit is. We don't know where it isn't.
Yeah.
And like Schmidman, I believe, is the one that coined that. I could be wrong. I think it's Schmidman.
I thought. I'm thinking not of we know where the whole. I'm thinking of it was UK metropolitan. He passed away like maybe like 10 years ago. He said we know. I think he said we know where salvation is, but we don't know where it isn't. And I think what he was and it was a controversial phrase, and I think it still is to this day. But I
It
think
just depends on what you mean by that, because like even with where the Holy Spirit is, but we don't know where He isn't. Like if you want to say that God can have economia in the way that He wills, of course He can.
yeah.
Like the thief on the cross, an example of economia. But we have to hold that with the both and the Orthodox Church is the one true church. Salvation is of the Orthodox Church. So in my mind, there might be some mystical way that somebody can be joined and grafted to the true church, and that's how they're saved. But it's not they're outside of the true church and they're saved. It's somehow some economia form that'd be outside of the normative baptism, chrismation, Eucharist, in which they're joined to the church, like the thief on the cross.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. And then the other argument is that there was the thief on the cross that was baptism by blood. So yeah, so there has to be some sort of way that they're joined to the church, and that's how salvation is, quote unquote, attained. So yeah, I mean, it's an interesting conversation to have with Protestants about the one true church, because Protestantism, Protestantism is like a huge blanket term.
Right.
It's not really like Protestantism isn't like this one church.
It's not a monolith.
Yeah, exactly. It's just this blanket term. And essentially, what the reformers did is they just destroyed the concept of what a church is, what ecclesia is with like capital E, as Paul uses it in the New Testament. They just destroyed that concept, and it just became, everything became relative, like,
Or the invisible church.
yeah,
right?
exactly. And that's a very common phrase that they use, is that it's the invisible church. It's the invisible church. So it's sort of a touchy conversation with Protestants, but I think we have to speak the truth.
Right. Yeah. Of course. Truth and love, and a lot of this stuff is the Western mind wants either or, but Orthodoxy, so much of the time, it's both and. We are the true church, and I don't get to, and I'm not saying you're going to hell.
Yeah.
But from Western mind, it's if you're in and I'm out, then I'm going to hell. But that's only Christ is the judge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's what I always say is I'm like, well, salvation is only for God to determine alone. But in a recent conversation with the Protestant, he kept pushing me on this. He's like, well, so you're condemning everyone to hell. You're condemning everyone to hell. Like, keeps pushing. And I was like, dude, like, you're just arguing from emotion.
Or straw man or whatever. Like that. If that is that my actual position? Is that my
exactly.
is that what?
Yeah.
Is that just? Can you demonstrate the logical necessity of what I'm saying and how that means that, or is that? It's maybe word concept fallacy or something. Yeah, it's just the either or instead of the both and is what that seems to come down to.
Yeah, it always it's always this false false equivocation of like, oh, it has to be one or the other. Right? It can't be both things.
Right. But there are true disjuncts of mutually exclusive things, but that's not always the case.
Yeah. It could be both. Protestants always ask this question when it comes to veneration. Is it veneration? Yeah, I think it's veneration or intercession of saints is what they're always asking this, like, well, why why do I have to ask for the intercession of the saints if I can just go straight to Jesus? Well, it's not either or, dude. Like, it's both.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's like Pajot calls it like a flattening of reality when you interpret Jesus Christ as our one mediator to the God the Father, and that means we can't have intercessory prayer. There's not saints. It's like, well, why would there also be angels? Why would God choose to send angels to minister to us or to help us in our life? It's all of reality is just being squished down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Someone's asking if we're in the same place or not. Hey, man, high five.
We are in the same place. High five right there. Yeah,
we're in the same place.
We are. Yeah,
this is
we
my
are
back
in
porch.
The same place. Metropolitan Anthony. No, that's not who I'm thinking of. I can't remember. It's a British. It's a UK metropolitan.
Nadim Haddad, $4.99, some imaginary money. God bless you both. Where is Val from? And was it Metropolitan Anthony of Soros?
No, that's not who I'm thinking of. I can't think of the bishop. It's a bishop. I can't think of him. But I'm from here. I live in the United States. But I was born in the East, Ukraine, the land of the Slavs. So I'm Slav. Grew up in an Orthodox country, so Orthodox by blood. At one point, my great grandparents left Orthodoxy in like the 1920s, and they came to Protestantism. So it's a lot of going back.
I think
my Slav roots.
I think Christina may have gotten it. Was a Bishop Callistos Ware?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm thinking of. Callistos Ware, Bishop Callistos Ware. Yes, so he coined that phrase. Was it we know where salvation is, but we know where it isn't. I think that's.
I mean,
what he said.
that sounds like the same quote with a different variable of
exactly.
what
It's
Schmemann
similar
said.
to the Holy Spirit quote.
Yeah, and it just depends on, because I mean that can be used in an ecumenistic way, or it can be
Yeah.
like what I said. So whenever I hear that, I think a lot of people with ecumenistic tendencies like to use phrases like that to mean something that I don't know if Callistos Ware meant that in an ecumenist way or not. I'd have to see the context, and I've only read one of his books. I've read The Orthodox Church by Callistos Ware.
I don't think he meant it in an ecumenist way, but I think he gets used in an ecumenist
It definitely
way.
does. Yeah.
I think it's because Callistos Ware wasn't like an extreme rigorous, like he wasn't super rigorous, and I think he gets a lot of flack for he was an ecumenist maybe, but I don't think he was an ecumenist at all.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't heard too much about that, him being one. But so you grew up in the Ukraine. What was that like?
Yeah, spent a portion of my childhood there. It was, I mean, so I spent a portion of my childhood there in post-Soviet Ukraine. So it was very like, terrible economy. The mob is running a bunch of the cities.
Was this in like the late 90s?
Yeah, this is like the late 90s. Yeah, it was, I mean, some of the stories, I mean, it was, you saw people get stabbed. You saw people die. We kind of grew up outside. We didn't have we didn't play any video games. This is post-Soviet Ukraine, right? The Soviet Union fell apart in 92. So it was fairly recent. So, but it was I would say it was a good life. Like, you as a kid, you don't know better. So you're just kind of, enjoying life, living in the moment. But at the same time, although like it was very, dangerous, like if you get into it with the wrong people, like you could die, you could get killed. This was just the reality of all post-Soviet nations. Like things fell apart. There's a power vacuum, and different, super corrupt government, as Eastern Europe is extremely corrupt. It was the same thing, right, in Moldova, Belarus, Romania, that entire Eastern Bloc. But at the same time, like people were very, I would say even the mobsters, they were very, they had morals. I think that comes from it being an Orthodox nation. Like people, you would kill people for certain beefs and things like that. But nobody really, like picked on some kid on the street that's like in the wrong neighborhood. People had morals and people respected other people. But it was definitely, I think it was a tough. Yeah, it was like, it's just growing up. If you're a Slav, I see somebody's there as a Slav too. I don't know where you're from. Moldy apple. So I think people that grew up in the East, whether it's, post-Soviet Russia, Ukraine, wherever it may be, I think understand that it was, it was a poor life, but, you made the best of everything. So it was good. I think it was good.
And did you grow up Orthodox, or was it?
No. Yeah, no. So grew up in a minority community of sort of evangelical fundamentalist Protestants.
Like when you say fundamentalist, is that like a Ukrainian context fundamentalist, or is that like what an American would think
Also similar,
of?
it's very similar to the American fundamentalists. Like,
Probably came from America.
yeah, 100%.
Missionaries. Okay.
Yeah, 100%. So it came from American missionaries that. Well, it was so the way this sort of evangelical fundamentalist, quote unquote, sectarianism came there was through Soviet immigrants that were in the United States, and then they brought it. They went back to Ukraine and they brought this.
Okay, so it was immigrants from the Soviets
Yeah.
coming to America,
Yeah, so-
converting and going back?
Yeah, so this was during the Tsardom. So this was during the Russian Empire.
Oh, okay. So that
Yeah.
far back,
Yeah, so it was that far back. So they
like late 1800s.
yeah, this
Early
is like
19?
late 1800s. There was a bunch of people that migrated. They grew up in the Russian Empire, and then they migrated to the United States at one point. And then they picked up this sort of evangelical ideology, this fundamentalism, and then they took it back and they started to evangelize all over Ukraine. And there was already controversy within the Orthodox Church during that time, like the late 1800s. I think it's because there were certain, I don't know, maybe certain church leaders that were kind of known for being corrupt already at that time.
Well, from my understanding, also the aristocracy was somewhat. It was pretty much in a decline. It wasn't as virtuous. You can read
Yeah.
Tolstoy's book Confessions, and he talks about growing up in the aristocracy in the church and seeing all the lukewarm people around him, the people that didn't take the faith seriously. There was just Orthodox in name, essentially, and then he became that as well. Like, oh, he was disillusioned, and just they weren't actually taking care of the poor. They weren't actually leading in a way that a healthy aristocracy would have.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, people were super disillusioned with the Orthodox Church, and then evangelicalism came, and it was already kind of, the area was set up for people to want to experience what they deemed to be true faith, which was this fundamentalist Christianity, and yeah, kind of grow up in this minority, sect within Ukraine. It's very conservative. Head coverings,
Wow.
no pants.
Oh, so it's almost like
yeah.
like for us that'd be like Amish or Midianite or
Yeah, well, there still are these
Mennonite.
fundamentalists in the United States. I think it's a lot of like Baptist fundamentalists. They're like lawn dresses. The
okay, like
ladies.
iconoclastic, no icons.
Yeah,
I mean
yeah,
that's
iconoclastic.
yeah, that's from Zwingli on. That's
Yep,
that's kind
exactly.
of the Baptist
Exactly. Yeah,
legacy.
so it was sort of that, but there was this big divide between the Baptists and this evangelical sect because the Baptists denied, what we deem tons.
Okay,
Yeah.
because so it was somewhat charismatic.
Yeah, so they
group.
started to so this sect began because of the Azusa Street revival. This sect began to embrace what they deemed as tons.
Okay, and was that just like a angelic language? Like, because I've only really
Yeah.
seen that a few times
Yeah.
in person. It's like skada skada skidi skada skidi.
So it was deemed an angelic language, which is what William Seymour
Okay.
called it that, and it's because he had disagreement with the other. I can't think of the other guy's
This
name.
kind of like California, some.
Yeah, this was Azusa Street in Los Angeles, California. There was two people that started this quote unquote Pentecostal movement, and it kind of spread its way to not only Protestantism or kind of its own branch of Pentecostal. It spread its way into Catholicism and then all kinds of
it's
different.
even touched Orthodoxy some.
Yes,
There's been
yeah,
like
and
priests
yep.
that have tried to integrate it into their parishes before.
Yeah, it touched Orthodoxy a little bit. And there was actually a big movement in the Soviet Union when it came to tons within the Orthodox Church. It was this charismatic movement, and it was, obviously, looked down upon by most of the Orthodox, and it was kind of shut down. But yeah, and there was this disagreement between William Seymour and the other guy. I'm just blanking on his name. That it had to be an actual language to where it was an angelic tongues language, and whoever the immigrants were that immigrated to Ukraine and evangelized this, they used that Corinthians verse and said, "Oh, it's an angelic language."
Right. I used to work for a guy in a woodworking shop, and he was Pentecostal, and he would always talk to me about stuff like that. Like, scientists recently came up. They did a brain scan on somebody who was speaking in tongues, and it wasn't even activating the communication language center of the brain. So. That shows that it's an angelic language. It bypasses that part of us, and it's like just our spirit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah, no, it definitely there's all kinds of studies done on it. I did a stream on Pentecostalism, just pretty much not even necessarily debunking Pentecostalism. I just went through the entire history of Pentecostalism for it was like a 4-hour stream. My camera died at one point. And I touched on a lot of this research that was done, and there was a bunch of research done on like the idea of tongues, and I don't remember the lady. I mean, it's been a while since that stream, but essentially, whatever country you come from, whatever language you speak in tons is similar to the dialect and the sentence structure of your native language.
Okay, so they can see that it's
Yeah, it's just a bunch of nonsense.
right.
Yeah.
It's just taking the same word, like the same sounds in your language and mishmashing them.
Yeah, and just mishmashing them together and essentially creating this tons of, because if you notice, like if you go to like Slavic communities, whether it's like, well, Romanians aren't considered Slavic communities, but they're kind of in that Eastern
Yeah,
bloc.
I know some people from Russia. They're like, nope, they are not Slavs. They are gypsies.
Yeah, and they won't even consider themselves Slav. They call themselves Romani.
Right.
But if you listen to like the Eastern Bloc, these sects that profess these angelic languages, it all sounds very similar. And then you go to like the Pentecostals in the South here in America, it also sounds very similar. Then you go to like Latino communities, it all sounds like the same. So it's super convenient.
Right. Well, also if you take videos of like a lot of like the being slain in the spirit stuff, or like the Toronto spirit, I don't know if you've looked into that. It was like this big big Pentecostal outbreak in Toronto, Canada.
Okay,
and then like it spread from there, and people are having these ecstatic experiences, and they were like, there's videotape of like these orbs in like it's basically this dust in the air, and they're like, "Whoa, the angels!" But if you look at a lot of that footage, and then go to India and look at footage of like the Kundalini spirit and like the ecstatic experiences they're having there, it's like
it's very similar.
it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Christina again said, we had an Russian Baptist church down the street from our OCA church. We all sat at the red light together, Russian Baptist and American Orthodox people. Weird. Yeah, I have a friend who's just an American guy. He was like kind of Irish, but he started going to a like Russian, Ukrainian Baptist church, and I went to a couple of their functions, whatever. I went to like some bonfires, and like it was when I don't even know if I was baptized yet, but I was probably a catechumen. And like people would ask me about stuff, and I would like try to start explaining Orthodoxy, and they're like, "What?" There's even one guy who's like, "Protestantism." I'm like, "What's that?" I'm like, "That's you, buddy. That's you. What do you mean? You don't know? You never even heard the term Protestant before?"
Yeah, I mean, Baptists are interesting though, because a lot of Baptists will claim they're not Protestant, even though a bunch of their theology is Protestant. But I think the reason is there's a Baptist guy that follows me on Instagram, and we go back and forth sometimes. He's an Anabaptist. And I think the reason is because they were persecuted by a lot of the reformers. So they kind of want to separate themselves from Baptists. And
they call it the Radical Reformation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And when you call them Protestant, they're like, I'm not a Protestant.
Well, I think that's always hilarious to hear, because it's to me it's like the most Protestant thing you can do is to protest the label Protestant. I'm not a Protestant. I'm just Christian.
Yeah.
All right,
Exactly.
keep protesting, buddy, man.
Yeah, it's quite
not
ironic.
fooling me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So you grew up in Ukraine in this charismatic sect, and you came to America?
Yep. Yeah, and it came to America right before the big 9/11.
Still a young kid?
Yeah, I was about 7, I think. We came somewhere during the summer, and I think we came sometime in like June or something, because I remember turning 7, and then in September 9/11 happened, so I do remember that. And then we came here. There was already a community of evangelicals here.
Yeah, not hard to find around here.
Yeah, not difficult at all, obviously. And we kind of just were in this community, and this community grew a ton now. It's huge. The church, or my old church, I guess, that I grew up in as a kid, it's like, I think I was telling you when we were having a conversation, it's close to like 2,000 members now.
Wow.
So it's large still, just a fundamentalist sort of Slavic evangelical church.
Do you think the ethnic identity helps bind it together more than like their theology? Like, do they view themselves like as Slavs or as Ukrainian?
Yeah, 100%. The ethnic identity binds the people together. It's Slav. It's Russians, Belarusians, and Ukrainians, which are like genetically they're the closest Slav. Right? There's like Polish people and Slovaks, but they kind of start to differ from the Russians, Ukrainians, Belarusians. Also, our languages sound similar.
Right.
They're distinct languages, by the way. Like if I speak Ukrainian to a Russian, he has no idea what I'm saying. I
Oh,
speak,
really?
yeah, I speak Russian, so I can speak, back and forth with them and understand them.
How different is that? I mean, do they?
It's quite different. Like if
I
I
know they have a
speak,
couple different letters. They have like an I, right, instead of the.
yeah, there's several different letters. There's like a y letter and a g letter, or our g. We have a h and a g, and they don't have it. They just have a g. But well, it's both. It's the Cyrillic alphabet, but
Yeah.
the languages are just
How
different.
do they say bread? Is it still hulyeb?
So Russian is chlieb, and Ukrainian is chlib, which sounds very
okay.
similar.
So
Yeah,
almost like a dialect.
yeah, a lot of the words are
For
very
that.
similar, but yeah, certain words are like different dialects, but a bunch of the words are just totally different words.
Okay.
Like for example, like king is tsar
Yeah.
in Russian. In Ukrainian, it's korol, which is the
Oh.
Slavic word. So Ukrainian is a lot more Slavic, and then Belarusian is like totally different language as well.
Because like an old Church Slavonic, it's still tsar.
Yeah, it is tsar, but it's because they borrowed from the Greeks.
Okay.
It's closer to the Greek. Yeah, so a bunch of the words were borrowed from the Greeks because obviously Byzantine orthodoxy is, what Vladimir the Great accepted.
Right. He went into Hagia Sophia and said, "I knew not if I
Exactly.
was in heaven or on earth." Right.
Yep. Yeah, he was amazed. Yeah, he was Hagia Sophia. It was beautiful, and then he said, "Yeah, this is what we want. We don't want to embrace Islam or be pagan any longer." And they burned the idols and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, this was 988.
So with the Russian-Ukrainian war, have you seen like a difference in opinion, more polarization? Because I've seen like a lot of different rhetoric. I've heard a lot of people say that Russia and Ukraine are essentially like Ukraine just means borderland. It's old Russia. It's like where the Rus came from. They're essentially the same. It's just like politics of like how after the Soviet Union fell or the what was it the early Soviet Union, they sold off a whole bunch of land. Because they were being invaded by Germany or whatever. I can't remember exact details, but they ended up selling a whole bunch of land off. So there's all these political things why why the map looks the way it does. Like, what do you think is your perception of the difference between post
so
and
it's
pre-war?
extremely polarizing right now because of the war, obviously. I think when there was no conflict, it was getting better. But because of the war, it's huge polarization. And well, I mean, even I think a lot of people are just kind of they're fed these different viewpoints, and I think people are kind of very ignorant of that region and the
Right.
history of it.
That's like that Tucker interview with Putin.
Yeah.
Like, so why did you invade Ukraine? Actually, that seems like a mean thing to do. And he's like, well, when 500 years ago, when the Ottoman Empire, and everybody's like, why does he have to tell this giant long story? It's like, well, because you're a Westerner that knows like last week of Russian history. You think it's still the Soviet Union.
Yeah. So I watched that interview, and I mean, Putin was just pushing the Russian side of it, which the Ukrainian historians have a different point of view. But the thing is here is you have to try to pick out what is the actual truth. And the reality is, it's the same with the Belarusians, is that, well, one, it was Kievan Rus, but Kievan Rus was just kind of a bunch of kingdom. It was like all these states.
Well,
like
even like
different-
the Russian Empire, like the Tsarist Russia wasn't like over
Yeah,
1,000 different peoples groups
Yeah.
that came together.
Yeah, exactly. It was a bunch of different people group. They were all related. They were Slavs, but we had like the Muscovites, we had the Kievan Rus, we had the Zaporozhians, then we had the different Belarusian kingdoms. So even like as early, like the closest we were was probably around Kievan, when Kievan Rus was still this this kind of like thing of like different states. That's what it was. These different kingdoms. It wasn't like this one kingdom, unified kingdom.
That happened with the first Tsar before it became the Romanov Empire. Was that when that unified?
Well, no. Well, the Russian Empire. I don't know the date when of the Russian when it became like the Russian kingdom, when like it officially became that. But it was I think it was right after the Mongol invasion.
Okay.
I think the Muscovites, Ivan the Terrible, right, defeats the Mongols, and I think right after that is when essentially the Russian kingdom is created. But the reality is that the cultures begin to like differ greatly somewhere in like the 13th, 14th century, like the language becomes extremely distinct.
Okay.
The Muscovites have their own dialects. The Ukrainians start to have their own dialects. The Belarusians start to have their own dialects, and essentially it just becomes totally different languages. And they were always sort of distinct. There was no this concept of like Ukrainian nationality or Russian nationality, but it was always different. Like the Ukrainian side was like Zaporozhian Kazakhs. If you go back to like the Kazakhs, the Zaporozhian Kazakhs were like. Now it's like that was the Ukrainians. They had this Ukrainian dialect. And then we had the Don Kazakhs. Those were like the Muscovites. They had their own dialect. So it was always different. And then eventually it became this national identity of Ukraina and Russia and Belarus. But we're, as far as like Slavs go, like we're the closest, like genetically and then language wise. But over the past last 800 years, like there's huge differences in that happen in terms of culture and language as well. So it's quite different. It's not like Ukraine has never been little Russia. The Ukrainian people were always like, even like if we go to the Soviet Union, even like Stalin, when he was trying to kind of crush the Ukrainian spirit, he started this movement called against the kulaki, right? And he starved a bunch of Ukrainians essentially. So it was never like
At the time, would they have considered themselves like Ukrainian, or would they have thought of themselves as Russian?
At that point they were already Ukrainians.
So, but before, like let's say with under the Tsar, would they have?
Yeah.
Would it be like I'm from the South, but I'm an American? Or would it be like I'm Ukrainian, but I'm Russian?
No. The first time Ukraine is mentioned, I think, if I can remember correctly, is somewhere in the 17th century. Like Ukraine, it's like 1619 or something. Like in writing, the poets mention like Ukraine. We are the people of Ukraine. We live in Ukraine, this land.
I'm sorry, man. It's really cold out here.
It is a little cold.
It's windy and cold. But go on.
Yeah.
So you want a jacket or something?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, if I get a little too cold, I'll
I got some rum if you want. I know it's a fast day, but if you want some liquid heat,
I'll be good. I am fasting today. Yeah. So, but yeah. So they're distinct. We're very close together, like genetically. But I think people don't realize how different like the language. Like for example, we like at our parish we have a Belarusian couple. Like when I communicate with them, I communicate with them in Russian. If he starts speaking Belarusian to me, I'm lost.
Okay.
Yeah, I have no idea what he's saying.
So is it because like I've been to Haiti and I was with somebody who spoke French and they speak Creole, which is like a kind of a derivative. It came out of French,
Louisiana French.
Yeah, well, it's kind of. I mean, it's the same word, but they call it Creole. It's like Haitian French. The slaves under the colony started like using their own words and dialect stuff to communicate with their in group or whatever, and that became its own thing called Creole. And it's derivative of French because they were kind of being taught French from the French occupation or whatever, the French colonization. But my friend who spoke French was largely able to communicate because of how much of an overlap there was.
Yeah, I think there's much less overlap when it comes to Ukrainian, Belarusian, and in Russian though, than in like a Quebec. Person from Quebec is speaking to somebody from France. There's way less overlap. It's more like Portuguese and Spanish, I would say, to where like the Portuguese can kind of understand the Spanish, but like a bunch of the words are just different words, and it's totally like I said, like the one thing that unites us is like because we were essentially like one kingdom, and then the Soviet Union was one thing, is like we all learned growing up, we all learned Russian. So Russian is kind of the lingua franca, so to say, of that region. But most like Russians, when they speak to Belarusians, they're lost. When they speak to Ukrainians, they're lost.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought there was that much division in the language. So is Putin Hitler? What do you think?
I don't think Putin's Hitler.
But Trump is though, right?
Yeah, Trump. Yeah, Trump might be. Yeah, Trump might be though.
So
Trump
then Putin's Hitler
by
association, I think.
Yeah, I mean he met Trump before, and he might be Hitler by association.
Right. It's
Trump.
like being seen having a picture taken with Epstein. Like There's the picture.
Yeah.
You shook his hand. You were at the same party.
Yeah, now it's Diddy. Yeah, now it's Diddy. There's pictures of I saw pictures of LeBron James. That meme going around of LeBron James saying, "There's no party like a Diddy party." Oh yeah,
I'm sure he was speaking from the heart there.
Yeah. I mean, LeBron is cooked. Cooked. But as far as Putin goes, as an Orthodox Christian, I don't. There's this weird. I think it comes from a lot of people that are kind of ignorant of geopolitics or kind of just that region. They become these fanboys of Putin, not realizing like what Putin is. Like Putin is, I mean, he's essentially a LARPer is what Putin is. I mean,
when it comes to orthodoxy.
Yeah, I mean, you see, right? I mean, you see clips of Putin kissing the Quran on one of these days. That was recent,
yeah.
And he's done that before. Like, this isn't nothing new. Like, these clips are just kind of making their way around the internet recently, and then people are like, "What? I thought he was Orthodox." It's like, dude, he's a politician.
I mean, if he was a diplomat, politician, like there's a large amount of Muslims in Russia.
Yeah,
like it makes sense for him to pay lip service or, speak to his constituents or whatever. But as an Orthodox Christian, you don't. That's crossing the line. You can be like, I respect you and your culture and your language and your disgusting food or whatever it is. But the kissing their book, that's too far to me. I mean, I think that's obvious.
Yeah, the people just don't realize that Putin has always been this way. We kind of grew up just knowing Putin as this guy, like he just kind of appeals to the masses. I mean, even when you watch that Tucker Carlson interview, like you listen to him talk about orthodoxy, like you're like, bro, what? Like you're not Orthodox, dude. I mean, he's essentially like, preaching this sort of ecumenist, universalist Christianity, and you're like,
so he's a modernist.
Yeah, he's essentially a modernist. So I mean, I don't, I mean that whole conflict is complicated.
Yeah,
in the sense of like.
It's really funny seeing all the Americans that like didn't even know Ukraine was a country until 4 years
the
ago.
Whole thing
like
happened. Yeah,
3 seconds ago, I realized this is the most important thing. Put my flags everywhere. Change my profile picture.
Yeah, exactly, and I think it put a lot of Ukrainians in like this weird spot, and I think it put a lot of Orthodox Christians, because Ukraine is like 90% Orthodox.
Well, it's weird now. Like the Orthodox Church is like illegal in Ukraine.
Yeah. So the Moscow Patriarch Church, the Ukrainian Orthodox Church of Ukraine, is quote unquote illegal. They're still meeting. I'm in contact with some people. Like they're not really like.
There is some. I mean, I've seen persecution. I've seen people being
there's
beaten
some.
up
Yeah, there's
and
some being shut
removed
down
and
for quote unquote spying.
Ties to Russia.
And there's ties to Russia, and then there's some people, some priests being arrested. But yeah, they've made it illegal, and there's this split between the OCU and the UOC
with the EP involvement. And
the essentially the non-canonical church is what I would call it.
I've seen some weird clips of like those non-canonical stuff doing like raves in the nave and like having like flashing lights, like strobe lights in the altar and stuff. It's weird.
Yeah, I think it's because a lot of the priests are just kind of ignorant, because I don't think a lot of them really went through any sort of education. They're just being kind of thrown into these.
Are they like being propped up like as a political thing?
You know what? I don't know. I don't even really pay too much attention to it. But a lot of them just seem very ignorant. Even like when they're doing like liturgy, a lot of them are lost. Like they don't know how to properly read the liturgy or chant it. So I think it's just, I mean, everything's very, very politicized in Ukraine right now. And it doesn't help having, a secular, quote unquote, Jew president, right, in Ukraine, Zelensky.
Oh yeah.
It just kind of makes things worse, I think, because he's a huge he's another guy that, by the way, is like essentially like he's a modern, but like you'll see him at the Orthodox churches like doing this and all praying, and then you'll see him because, by the way, Crimea, like that eastern region, there's a lot of Muslims in Ukraine as well. You'll see him there like during Ramadan, like reading the Quran with them and stuff. So it's like, dude, like, I mean, these dudes are just like, they're just politicians, like they're just
trying to be everybody's favorite.
Exactly. And but there's this weird like divide within Orthodoxy to where people take one side and the other, and they
it's not that simple.
Yeah, they don't realize like it's not that simple, dude. And there's some people that are like hate Putin and they're just like, oh, Russians are all evil.
Yeah.
And then there's people that are
look
like,
at him shirtless riding on a horse, dude. Oh my gosh, he knows jujitsu.
yeah. And then there's people that are like huge fanboys of Russian Orthodoxy and they tie it with like, Russian people in
Yeah.
general. And then they like glaze Putin like super, Putin's the savior. It's like, dude, not really, dude. Like, not really.
I wish, but
Yeah, like I wish he was, but like not really. So
I do think, I mean, as far as like politicians goes, like being in America here and like seeing the state of our politicians, like at least seems like he's manly, he's competent. I mean, obviously he has like all the modernist tendencies we've been talking about, but he does seem like he doesn't seem to be falling under like the competency crisis that's affecting most of the West.
yeah, and that's just the East in general. If you like, for example, like there's kind of this big propaganda that like Ukraine is like this liberal left wing, like, bro, you go to like I was in Ukraine 2 years ago. Bro, if people find out you're a homosexual, like you're gay, like they're like you're gonna get beat up, dude. Like Ukraine isn't this like it seems that way because Zelensky is like LARPing. It's like, oh,
Yeah,
dude,
I've seen
like,
some weird video of him like in like a leotard. And,
Yeah. Well, so he was a comedian. He was like
Yeah.
a comedian on his show, and he was like made a fool of himself. That's how he became famous. But like he kind of LARPs like, oh, we accept everyone. We don't care what your sexuality, this and that. And that's because he's like LARPing for the left.
Right.
Like,
Well, yeah, like, hey, NATO, America, hey,
Yeah,
the West, like,
exactly.
I'm on your side.
Exactly. But like, if you actually go to Ukraine, like Ukraine is super traditionalist, dude. Like, dude, like gay people get beat up in the streets.
Which if you
Same
are
thing in Russia too.
If you are American and you've never been to Ukraine and you see all the associations of the left here and all of the woke and the LGBT fascists with their rainbow flag and then the Ukraine flag right beside each other, like you'd be like, oh yeah, I mean they're just basically state number. They're state 52. You know, Israel's 51, Ukraine's state 52. They're totally on board with all of the modernist stuff. It's basically California.
Yeah.
Slavic California.
Yeah, you're
is
not
what you'd think if you're here in Washington and you saw all the people associated with it.
Yeah, you're not gonna find that at all. Like I'd be shocked if you find a gay flag in Ukraine. Like it's very like the Eastern Bloc is just very conservative. Like people are very masculine there, and yeah. But speaking of the other state, what do you think about the other conflict? Because that's
the one
that's a
ramping
hot
up?
topic right now.
Yeah, it's getting hotter.
Yeah, yeah.
I haven't been following it too closely. I mean, when Russia Ukraine was going off, I was following that pretty darn closely, like a lot. And I was also not too far off from the COOF, so I was on my phone, on my computer, way too much, looking at all the politics, and I felt like you kind of had to, because like, I mean, people died because they weren't paying attention, right? So I've been paying attention too much to this one. I see headlines and some videos and stuff. I know that there's been people assassinated recently, and then there's promises of strong retaliation. The justice will be swift, those kind of things. But I give me a rundown. You're probably more educated on it than I am.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get too much into the geopolitics, but that's I think because of the topics I touch, which like concerns Islam a lot in the I have a lot of Middle Eastern followers, like people from Lebanon, Orthodox Christians from Syria, Iraqi or a bunch of Orientals following me, like Coptics, and so it concerns that region, and it's a very hot topic. It's like it's another hot topic because I mean anytime the little hat people are mentioned, I feel like on YouTube you gotta like
Yeah,
censor
the
yourself.
bagels.
Yeah, every time they're mentioned, like it's a hot topic. One, because I think ethnically, like for example, the Eastern Bloc where I'm from, it's very anti-little hat people. And two, the
the
little
Eastern
hat
Bloc
people,
notices.
yeah, it's like Eastern Bloc, and then the Middle East, they're like, dude, let's team up, dude, let's get those guys. So it's like a hot topic there, and also because I just lost my train of thought. Also because Slav California, Sacramento. If you go to Sacramento, it's Slav Central there.
A lot of Slavs on the West Coast.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah, and what I was saying is also because the little hat people have kind of, have always been, opponents or the synagogue of Satan, like throughout church history, right? It's the
I
Talmud,
mean,
the
I don't know
Kabbalah.
if you can't read the book set that's right here. It's by E. Michael Jones. It's the one you're thinking of in 3 volumes.
Oh, okay.
The Revolutionary Spirit.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a hot topic right now. And, Israel is, looks like they're going to be bombing Iran soon. They bombed Lebanon. They killed the Shia leader in Lebanon, which I think upset a lot of Orthodox Lebanese people because he was very good to the Orthodox people in Lebanon. So if there's some Lebanese, you can touch on that. But from what it sounds like, he wasn't very good to the Maronites, and he, Hezbollah killed a bunch of Sunnis, so they all hated him. And Hezbollah is also like a very liberal, secular organization. It's not very religious, from what I understand. So they're quite different from Hamas. Yeah, see, Nadim Haddad here it upset me. Yeah, so people have kind of various views. Lebanon is a wild place. Lebanon is so diverse. I mean, Lebanon was what? Because Lebanon was like smaller Lebanon, from what I understand, and then it became greater Lebanon.
Yeah, they added, from my understanding, they like added regions for like geopolitical. They added regions for geopolitical reasons to add like Maronites, more Maronites than there was Orthodox and things like that too. Have more political sway, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then like it can only be a Maronite president, and then this certain position within the government can only be a Shia, a Muslim, and then an Orthodox in this position. So I mean, Lebanon is like a disaster, like waiting to. I mean, it's just so many.
Well, I mean, a
like
lot
diverse
of
people, and they're all in opposition with each other, and it's like that place is a mess.
A lot of places like that in the Middle East, and that and with the little hat people, there's a lot of tension.
Yeah, and I guess you have to find somebody to blame. So it's the little hat people. I mean, I think as Christians, I mean, especially as Orthodox Christians, I think it's difficult. I don't think, right, we should be backing, for example, Hamas or the Palestinians or certain Islamic groups per se, or the Jews, right?
Right. And, well, I mean, I know Orthodox people that, because they see what Israel's doing, that they view Muslims much more in a positive light, and like we as traditionalists, as people that want to hold to our traditional religions, can come together. It's like no, they're in many ways they're not. I mean, they're going to be. If we got occupied by an Islamic state, they'd probably treat Orthodox Christians better than a communist country would. Communists treat Christians way worse than Muslims do. But it's like an apartheid state. You're not a first-class citizen.
Yeah, I mean, you're still going to be paying the jizya. You either convert or pay the jizya, which is like a kufar tax, an unbeliever tax. And it was that way during the Ottoman Empire.
Yeah.
Like the Jews and the Christians were paying, right, the jizya. And also, you have various opinions in Lebanon. I mean, this Nadim Haddad individual who sounds
he's Lebanese.
It sounds like comes from the northern part, Orthodox part. They're usually okay with them. You talk to a lot of Maronites, they can't stand the Shia Muslims. So I think it's very like political. I think if we want to look at it from like a religious perspective, it's like, dude, they both blaspheme our Lord and Savior Christ. Like they're
just
Christ
because one is
haters.
terrible doesn't mean the other one's good.
Yeah. I think they're both. Yeah, I think they're both terrible. So,
but it's kind of a vortex swirling. A lot of people are saying it's the beginning of World War III.
Yeah. It could be. What do you think about that?
I don't know. We'll find out, man.
Yeah, I mean,
I don't think it's gonna cool down soon. I mean, just the trajectory the last few years just been escalation.
Yeah, it doesn't. I mean,
That's all a funny meme. It was like an American, and it was like looking at Israel and looking at Hamas, and like my tax dollars, also my tax dollars somehow, and then it showed North Carolina, but not my tax dollars. One time it should be my tax dollars, not my tax dollars.
Yeah, I saw that a few people reposted that meme. Made its rounds on social media. I think Luigi reposted it, and maybe Jay Dyer.
Because my understanding, like a lot of the Hamas weaponry is from America. Like we left Afghanistan, right, and like left a bunch of stuff. And we essentially armed them, right? Am I wrong on that?
I'm not
Am I,
sure.
am
I
I
do
thinking,
know.
is my thinking simplistic?
I mean, I do know that. I mean, the West has funded Hamas, but they were giving money to, from what I understand, they were giving money to Hamas to like feed its people in Gaza and like give them a better life. But they were just kind of spending that money on tunnels and weaponry.
They love their secret tunnel. I want to know what. I've never actually seen inside the tunnel. Have you seen inside the tunnel?
I've seen some videos of the tunnels. You know, it's funny. They thought when the war started, this was pretty funny when they were like, "Oh yeah, like Israel's gonna go in. They're cooked. They're gonna go in those." They just blew the shiz out of those tunnels. They're like, "Yeah, we're not even gonna go in there, dude. We don't even care, dude." They're like, "Oh, all that money spent on those tunnels, dude."
Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, like ancient churches have just been blown up in Gaza.
And I think that's the hardest part is like I know so many Palestinian Christians that fled like they don't pretty much Christians don't exist in Gaza at this point. There's maybe like 200 Orthodox Christians left in Gaza. They've all left, and then when you talk to them, it's super sad because that region is like is ethnically like Orthodox. Like before Islam even came into that region, even after Islam came, like a bunch of the people converted. You know, they were coerced into it, and then Islamic jihad and things of that nature, and the different caliphates that ruled that region. But it still had a strong Orthodox presence in the Palestine region and Gaza, and a bunch of them just left, and it's sad. Yeah, it's sad. You talk to a lot of Palestinians and Christians, and they're just heartbroken.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a happy ending one way or the other. I don't know where it's going. There's people that understand the history of it way more than I do that probably have better predictions, but I don't see it going any way good. I don't see it cooling down. I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't either. I mean, the West is going to keep funding the state of Israel, and I don't think they're going to stop. From what Netanyahu is saying, it sounds like Iran is next, which I think is kind of a good thing for the Iranian people because they have been waiting to overthrow the government there. I mean, huge apostasy rates in Iran. You talk to Iranian Muslim, you talk to Persians, hate their God, like 95% of them. Like not even like they're Shia Muslims, like the Beni Israel or the people of the book are the Jews are their enemy. But you see like clips going around in Iran, like to where they're like trying to chant like death to Israel in Iran, and the Iranian people are death to Palestine. They're chanting the opposite, not because they necessarily support Israel, but it's just like there's so much distaste and hate for the government that like a bunch of Iranian people are just they're like supporting Israel for the sake of like opposing their government. And so I think it'll be good because I feel for the Iranian people because huge apostasy rates. You talk to Iranian people, they're the most open when it comes to Christianity, especially Orthodox Christianity.
Are they apostatizing out of
they're
Islam
already like
into Christianity?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a bunch of them are apostatizing. They're either just going secular, but and when you talk to them about Christianity, they're the most open to it.
Okay. Why do you think that is?
I think it's because of the government. The government, you're right, they're enforcing all
So
these
it's just giving them like a bad taste of
about Islam, because essentially it's a Sharia state, right? They had all these issues with women getting beat in public, and then that young lady was killed in public for not wearing her hijab, and that's kind of when it all started. And the Iranian people have just been waiting for the West to do something, like give some sort of push to where they can just overthrow the government. That's what they want to do.
Well, I mean, if 95% don't like it or aren't sympathetic, that's you don't. I mean, you hear a lot of times like you need 17% to have a revolution or something like that. Like 95, it should be people are going to die, but we're going to have some change.
And I think that's people are waiting for that. I see people are saying Iranians are open to Zoroastrianism.
Oh,
They're the originals, the original Persians.
And is there I don't know too much about Zoroastrianism. Is there like an actual line of traditional Zoro? Or is it just all people LARPing? I want to go back to we was pagans kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it was lost. I think it's this whole we was pagans movement. I think a bunch of it was lost. I don't know too much about it, but I don't think there's a line, and I don't think there's like a bunch of preserved sacred texts for Zoroastrianism at all. Yeah, you know what? I just like within like the last few months, I found out about this pagan move. I was like so unaware.
Oh, I've met pagans.
Yeah?
So even at our church, there's a guy who's converting from paganism.
Really,
Yeah.
it's so weird to me, and I realize like it's blowing up within a lot of Slavic communities. Like there's a bunch of like
Well, that
this
makes sense.
Slavic pride, like Slavism. It's like
Yeah.
this movement within the Slavic communities, like Russians, Ukrainians, Slovaks, Bosnians, right? All these people, and they're like returning to these weird like. I was like, bro, what? Like what?
Well, I mean,
That's wild.
You'd know better than I, but aren't there like still some traditions or festivities, festive events that happen like that are rooted in some kind of paganism? Like there's
There
like I
are.
can't remember the name of it. There's one where they burn. It's a kind of a in Slavic lands they have fires. It's kind of like their harvest thing. I can't remember what it's called.
I it's slipping my mind. I know what you're talking about, and they've incorporated some of these into like Orthodox festivals, which
Okay.
is like weird to me.
Like, do you think it's something that can be baptized, or do you think it is a chimera?
No, I think I think you got to do away with all of it. I don't.
Because I mean, there's
don't
some things
think-
from paganism that were fine,
Yeah, so
or that were able to be integrated. Not everything was Antichrist.
yeah, this is kind of an interesting topic, and I think Father David talked about this when Alaska was evangelized by
Saint
the Orthodox
Innocent
Christians.
and Saint Herman.
This is an interesting topic. I'm very anti that. Like, I got into it with Father David a little bit with Saturnalia and Christmas. Like, to me, I don't see any connection between Saturnalia and Christmas. Different dates. I mean, it's a whole topic. I think I have a video online about it. But yeah, in some sense, I do agree. Like certain things, they're not just antichrist; it's just part of their culture, and you can see that like right when you experience like Russian Orthodoxy, it's gonna be different from Greek Orthodoxy, just culturally.
Well, some of the like the pagan stuff is, I would say, like so in line with Orthodoxy that it's like logos spermaticos. Like there are seeds of the word even in these pagan cultures, and like you can look at different pagan cultures around the world. I think it's in Australia. The Aborigine people there had this idea of like this, not the sun god, but like the one true God, essentially like the God of light that abandoned them, and they've been lost. They have removed themselves from him because of like their own shame, something like that. So it's like even in their culture, you could interpret it as like they are aware that they've been cut off from Yahweh.
Yeah. This is another interesting topic. I this was like a few years ago. I had a conversation with like a very well-read Protestant. He was a teaching pastor, and he was telling me how Plato. I think he was Plato. He was like so close to like knowing who Yahweh is, like who God is, but it's just like it was like this feeling of like he's cut off, like you said, Robert, like he's cut off from God, but like he's like so close to grasping this concept, right? When he talks about the logos, is that Plato?
With Plato talking about?
Is it Plato talks
I haven't
about
read
the
Plato
logos?
in a while. I've got him on my shelf.
Okay. I think
need
it's
to go back to
Plato.
brush
Yeah, I
up.
think it's Plato's the one that's that everything comes. Oh, Aristotle. Yeah, I'm thinking Aristotle. Yeah, thank you,
Aristotle.
Nadim. Yeah, he's everything right. It's everything's about the logos.
Right, but it's not the second person of the Trinity.
Yeah, it's not the second person of the Trinity, but it's like, or maybe Socrates. No, I think it's Aristotle.
Maybe one of the.
It might be
philosophers.
Socrates actually.
I don't think it's Plato.
I mean, you guys can Google it. But yeah, it's like they're so close to it. Yeah, and like the totem poles in Alaska, for example, like they're not these Orthodox communities, these native communities, like they're not idols. These totem poles of these communities, they're just like their lineage, right? It's like the history. That's how they.
It's like their family icons.
Yeah, exactly. It's like their family icons, some things like that, where like incorporate. You don't have to like destroy everything.
Right, or like one of the things that was very endearing to the native Alaskan people to Orthodoxy was the Feast of Theophany. When they do the blessings of the water, they throw the cross into the river, and they bless the water through that. They're like, oh, wow, like because of their ties to the land, they were very sympathetic to Orthodoxy because they saw the respect of the land that the Orthodox people had.
Yeah, yeah, and they have something similar in to where they do like they throw the cross in the water and they go fetch it. What is that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, that's just what I'm talking about. That's Christ's baptism. That's the Feast of Christ's baptism.
Yeah.
There's been, I mean, even like sometimes they'll throw it, and there's miracles where the water starts flowing the opposite way.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen some videos of that. It's pretty cool. They do it. I've seen some parishes in Australia doing it. It'd be cool if we did it here during
We do.
the summer. Oh, we do.
Yeah, I think it's
I
like
had
February or
no idea.
something. So it's coming up in a couple months. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah, we do it
really?
right in the river next to church.
Shoot, I gotta participate in that.
Yeah.
I gotta start swimming.
Well, our priest will say, "Don't." I know it's especially Russian. Like they go and fetch it. I don't know how clean this river is, guys. You can go fetch it if you want, but I'm going to put a rope on it. This is not the cleanest river.
Okay. Yeah. 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 I know when the Slavs converted in 988, we have an icon, and then we have a bunch of like paintings that show of them like just destroying all the idols, burning all the idols. But there's a bunch of like traditional things that are left over, and we joke about it. I know in like Russian, Ukrainian, Slavic, we joke about, we're like, why do we do this? And they're like, it's from our pagan past. Like this is not, it has nothing to do with Christianity. It's our pagan past. So yeah, there's a bunch of things that are like remnants that's like left over from culturally from it. So yeah. Yeah, what else we got here?
All right, we can look to the chat. Earlier, Ape with Agency, talking to the mic, said, "Are all Orthodox liturgies in their respective languages?" Do you want me to answer? You want to answer?
I mean, the way we do it here in the United States, I mean, our parish is all in English.
But I've been to parishes. I've been to an OCA parish where it's
Yeah.
half English, half Russian.
Yep.
So it's even a little bit longer because they'll do some things just twice. Even at our parish, we do the Our Father in Church Slavonic and in English.
Yep. Yeah. So usually the ethnic churches are half and half. Like if you go to a canonical Ukrainian Orthodox Church of America, for example, they do half and half. For some, most ROCOR churches I've been to, they usually just do it in Russian. I haven't been to any that
I've been one
do
of them
half and
that
half.
do just English.
Oh,
a lot of
okay.
it depends on the needs of the parish. If the parish is 90% ethnic Russian that all speak Russian and they've been speaking Russian for 200 years since they've come to America, that's the it's not like the Latins that were like everything must be in Latin until recently, or nothing must be in Latin. Everything must be Norvis Odo. But even with like the baptism of the Rus, the East, the Orthodox were trying to teach them. We have Saint Cyril and Methodius. Like we're going to give you we're going to give you a written version of your language. It's going to be in your language. We're going to give you the text in your language, the liturgies in your language. Yeah. But you had Latins at the time that would go, and they were trying to force them to do everything in Latin. It was, and kind of the beginning of this like sacred Latin.
Exactly, and the Greeks were trying to make them just do the all Greek liturgy, just Byzantine liturgy. And
that sounds like laziness though, more than like Deus Vult. Latin stuff.
It's interesting because it was a huge controversy back then. And the alphabet was named after Saint Cyril, the Slavonic alphabet, and it was a huge controversy to where they're like, no, you can't do it in their Slavonic language, dude. And the Slavs, we didn't even have like our own alphabet. We're just like orally
just talking,
passing stuff down. Like that's why, for example, like paganism is so hard to like trace because everything's just like passed down orally. Like a bunch of stuff we destroyed. Like we didn't even keep a bunch of this stuff. So it was a huge controversy, but thank God for Saint Cyril that we do have it in our native Slavonic language.
Okay, so we've covered a bit of ground. Anything else you wanted to talk about with like the geopolitics stuff? Do you think the war in Russia, like from Russia's perspective, is that justified the invasion, or is it more complicated than that?
I don't think it's justified.
You don't think so? You don't think, because like people say like NATO NATO breaking treaties and wanting to put nuclear weapons on Russia's border and all these things.
Yeah, NATO was created to oppose Russia. So NATO has been egging Russia on forever. But it is very complicated. But at the end of the day, it's Russia invading a sovereign nation. Like at the end of the day, it's Russia invading a sovereign nation. It's Orthodox Christians killing Orthodox Christians.
Yeah, people say like a brother war.
Yeah, exactly. So I think I don't. At the end of the day, I don't think it's justified. It's
Is there weight behind Putin saying like Western Ukraine is full of Nazis and all that?
no, no, it's nonsense.
That's just rhetoric.
It's nonsense. Yeah, I've been.
Rhetoric?
Even like when I was in Ukraine 2 years ago, I was in the east near Dnipro. I was in the Donbass region.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry. He's in the east, not the west.
Yeah, I was in the Donbass region,
No,
and
wait.
then
No, I think I'm pretty sure he says it is in the west. Though,
he's probably talking about the west. The west is very nationalistic. The east is kind of mixed. The east, a lot of people speak Russian in the east, and then the west is like, if right now in the west, if you like go to a restaurant, for example, in Lviv, which is like near the border of Poland, and you speak Russian, they'll be like, huh? They understand what you're saying, but they're just like, no, dude, like, don't. We have our own language. But no, this is not true. I mean, there are like, just like in any country, there's going to be like these radicals. There's some, you're going to interact with some, Nazis. They'll have like swastikas and stuff. Just like you're going to meet a bunch of Russians. Like when I was in Russia, like I met a few Russians that had swastikas. Like it's just.
And I mean, there's been even here at our church, there's people who have Russian descent that are very Soviet sympathizing, and they believe like Soviet Russia is their. There's a specific situation. I'm not going to go into detail, but one controversy of a guy who was catechumen. He's Russian descent. Came here he's an immigrant, and Soviet Russia is his mother. You will never speak ill of my mother. And communism was very good to me growing up. And he thinks of like him and all of his Soviet Union children friends like going and painting murals and stuff. He doesn't have any kind of. It doesn't seem. I mean, I've talked to him many times about like the gulags, and he's like, "Oh, that's all propaganda."
Yeah, no,
like,
is he an older guy?
Yeah, you might know who I'm talking about, but
Okay.
yeah. I mean, there's things like there's all these different perspectives of even Slavic people that are gonna, whether it's the hammer and sickle that they're sympathetic to, or the four right angles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think there's huge nostalgia. There's huge nostalgia. Because like, for example, like, I mean, every Christian, right, sect, all the evangelical sects, Orthodoxy, they were viciously persecuted by the Soviets. Like we have so many stories of Orthodox priests like getting killed in the gulags, getting slaughtered. But there's this weird nostalgia, because like even if I talk to my parents, it's like this weird nostalgia of like, dude, everything was so cheap in Soviet during Soviet time, this and that, and it's like, dude, but like they persecuted our entire lineage,
right.
Like our dad, my grandfather and my great grandfather, like they spent time in work camps in Kazakhstan, like they spent years there, dude.
Is that just because they went through the fall, so they have like a better, worse thing to consider, like to think about? So because that was a few degrees better, it must be so much better than I remember. Like, is it something like that?
Yeah, it has to. Yeah, I think it has to do with the fall of the Soviet Union. It has to do with like the economy being better, like after the fall, right? Like, prices of everything shot up. And it's just like, I think it's this youth nostalgia of like, oh, you're this young Soviet boy or girl at school, and it's just like you sing these Soviet songs and like America's the devil and this and that. So it's just nostalgia. Like I could understand it, right? Like you have this sort of like, memories of like you as a young boy and you just like playing in the streets or something, like singing some.
That's
Soviet
like totally
song.
what was going on with this dude. He's controversial. I mean, he's been talked to by multiple priests that communism and orthodoxy do not mix. I mean, you can have your own like private opinion, but like this is the Orthodox Church, and if you're going to be baptized, like we're trying to catechize you, right? I mean, he flew to a different state and got baptized by a different priest, like without the permission of his of the people that the priest that made him a catechumen. So it was a controversial thing, but I won't.
Does he speak Russian? This guy?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
He's a Russian dude.
I gotta talk to him. I haven't.
Yeah, but that's something in our community that's happened. So like I said, there's all those different disparate chimeras, almost like people trying to make some ideology mesh with orthodoxy, and it doesn't really work.
Yeah, there's a few pages that I know follow me. Like there's one page, they're like Orthodox, but they love communism. They're always posting stuff about it. And then there's this one Serbian Orthodox guy who I kind of became friends. It's always like these very young people. Like they're always like 19, 20, 21 years old. And this Serbian guy who's like a huge fan of the Nazis. I sometimes chat with, he runs a pretty
like
big,
Hitler didn't do anything wrong kind of thing.
yeah, he's like very like, you know, little hat people are bad. Like Hitler had all these good ideas and stuff. Which, I mean, I feel like I'm going to say something super controversial.
We're live. We are live.
I don't know. I'll just leave it. Well, I mean, maybe I'll just quote Kanye. Actually,
Have you've seen the clip, right? He's like,
yeah, I've seen it.
yeah, you know, I'm not going to say it. Nothing can make me say it. And, you know, but you know who I'm talking about. Okay, it was the Jews. It was the Jews. Like, Kanye caves under zero pressure.
I mean, it is true that like the victors do write history. I don't think the little mustache man was like, let's just say he's not as bad as history makes him out to be. Like when you say that, people are like, whoa, like.
Well, it's like, what did he do? Commit evil and atrocity? Yeah. But was a lot of the situation with Weimar Republic and everything that led up to Nazi Germany really bad? Yeah. And makes sense that they would have done this. And was Germany treated really bad after World War I? Yeah, there's a lot of things going on there where it's like you go, it kind of makes sense. And did other countries that we think are just super good, did they also have bad decisions they made? I don't know if you saw like the Tucker thing also with Martyr Maid talking about Churchill and how he's like, Martyr Maid thinks he's like the true villain, more Hitlerish than Hitler.
Yeah, I haven't seen that particular interview, but I've heard that take on Churchill a few times.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far to say more Hitler than Hitler, but definitely not a he's a politician, and it seems like he wanted glory, and he made decisions. Mm-hmm. I mean, his side ended up winning, so maybe that's why it's written better. But he made decisions that were probably way too much of a risk, way too much of a gamble, cost a lot of lives. It didn't need to happen necessarily. Go watch the thing. I'm not trying to say I agree with it 100%. But
yeah, I mean, they were all kind of products of their environment. I mean,
and also there was actual things that the Jays were doing that were less than savory. So
yeah.
But that doesn't mean. But I also see a lot of people who, like, I think are actually like racist against the Jays, and it's like, no, they're doing terrible things. Repent, love them, forgive them, like be a Christian. They're people. They're made in the image of the God.
Yeah, I think there's two spectrums, and I think we're seeing a lot of people that are like actually, you know, just hate the ethnicity that is the little hat people.
I mean, at our parish there is ethnic Jews that have converted. They're Orthodox.
Yeah, and
even like Father James Bernstein. He's a priest in our community that recently died. Okay. He's an ethnic Jew, and I mean his son still goes to our parish. So he was beloved. Like I don't know if you went to his funeral. You could barely. There's no standing room. People were standing outside out of the door. There was.
Yeah, I didn't go to his funeral, but Father David did talk about it during one of the catechism classes. Yeah, and then we have you know, Orthodox Christians that are ethnically Jewish. So, I mean it's an interesting time we live in to where.
Sorry, go on. I just saw a great comment I want to bring up in a second.
Happened? Oh, you can go bring it up.
Like brother, you know who Brother Nathaniel is?
Yeah, he's a little crazy.
Yeah, I mean, he's gotten way worse over the last like 6 months.
Yeah,
I mean, there's things he said. I've watched him for like 2 or 3 years now. I mean, I've been to. I wasn't there at the same time, but I know he's gone to monasteries that I've been to, and he and I know a lot of the same monks and abbot and whatever. And he's canonical. He has a blessing for his bishop to do a lot of the things he's doing, but recently with all like the super white nationalism, anti-J, he's like saying race mixing is a sin. Like he's saying stuff. I'm like, I could even say like maybe there are issues with race mixing. I'm not saying that makes me racist or whatever. You know, I'm as black as the next black man. I'm probably blacker than them. I don't know.
Yeah, that's a topic on X. Race mixing.
This is probably too spicy, but like. I know people with mixed race or whatever, and they have children, and maybe there's more like issues that they face I mean, I personally know. Like, I have really good friends that are half black, and there's this tension between them, like with the white side of their family and the black side of their family, and it's just something they have to navigate. So, like, there's these particular issues or difficulties that come with it, and it's like maybe you don't want to have that in your family or whatever. And it's like, or maybe you want to have your grandkids look like the way your grandparents look. It's I don't think anything's wrong with that, but it's when it's saying that race mixing is a sin or that it's abhorrent to God. I can't think of where you'd come up with that.
Yeah, and
Controlled op. Yeah, I mean, I think it screams like glowy Fed energy to me.
really,
Yeah, brother. Like lately.
I mean, the first time I saw this guy, I'm like, something's off with him. Like, it's the way he speaks is like, it was like people like had all these nice things to say about him, but like as soon as I saw him, I'm like, he's like a little bit off. Like,
I mean, he was
mentally.
like a salesman for a long time, so he has the salesman jargon, and he does lots of rhymes and platitudes, and like a lot of the stuff, like he said, I'm like, yeah, I mean, that seems like perfectly orthodox, but I don't know if I was just not hearing the dog whistle and it's gotten really loud lately, or if it changed. I honestly gave him the benefit of the doubt when he first did all those posts, all the like crazy racist, I think heretical takes he's making. I was like, until I see him like actually on video saying this stuff, I'm gonna assume that he was hacked and that this isn't him, because wow.
Yeah, he was. I saw those tweets on the X, and I was like, is he trolling? Like, what's going on here? And I saw like Jay Dyer blocked him or something, and I was like, "What? I don't."
Yeah, and he's like going around trying to start beef. Like he like started saying Dyer teaches a bunch of heresies, and like my audience is bigger than it was like just weird like pissing contest stuff. I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. It was weird, but I think in terms of like, when it comes to like race and then like seeing certain people or villainizing certain people in history, I think the one thing that we do is like we try to apply this modernist standard to all of history, to where like it just doesn't exist in history. Like the concept of race, for example. Like you go to like antiquity times, like, bro, this concept doesn't even exist. Like the same understanding of how you perceive quote unquote race just doesn't exist anywhere in history.
I mean, there's like context, like the Roman context, like there's Roman, and then there's like the barbarians and like different people, and it's like we conquer them or we put them to tribute, and then they like especially over time become now they're Roman. They might have their their certain ethnic cultural things because of their region or whatever, but they became part of the identity.
Exactly. I mean, and even with the Romans, like it took forever for like the rest of the Italian peninsula to be acknowledged as Romans. For the longest time, it was like, no, dude, you're Roman.
Well, I mean, like, a lot of Italy was Greek until like what, the 1500s, something like that.
Yeah. Well, they had like all these different groups, like I don't know, like Sarmatians or whatever. They had all these different groups on the peninsula because the Romans were very, very distinct from all the other people.
Nadim, how relaxing that's making you is I'm full of anxiety because my awning leaks, and I've got my expensive PC out here, so I'm very concerned.
Hopefully no
I
leaks.
keep looking up. Yeah, it only really leaks when it gets like heavy rain, but it will.
Yeah.
And I think I tried to put it in a place that was dry, but I get very paranoid about it.
It looks like we're good right now.
Yeah. It also condensates. This thing's terrible. This thing is absolutely.
Really?
I need to. I've talked to people like, yep, you need to tear it down and build it again. This is not built well. They probably just the homeowner did it. Awesome.
I mean, no leaks right now. There's a little bit on the other side, but it looks good so far.
You can see like just different places will drip. Even like the I just lost my brain's breaking, but the gutters are like on the inside instead of the outside. It's weird. You see what I'm saying? They're on the wrong.
Yeah,
they're on the wrong side.
That I don't know who built.
You can't really
this.
see it on the camera, but yeah,
that is weird.
It should. If this is like this, it should be here. It should be here, and it's like there where I don't know. It's not in the right spot.
Yeah, that is weird. You got some remodeling to do here.
Yeah, you do. You don't know. There's so much work to get done on this property.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got tons and tons of fencing. Oh, there's a deer. Right there. You see that? You can see that on your camera? Can you see that on your camera?
A deer? I don't.
You don't see the deer? The deer right there.
Okay, I see it. Okay, I see it. It was kind of.
See the deer?
It was blending in. Okay, I see it now.
You see that? Maybe go back, roll the tape back. Maybe you can see
It's
it.
in the back there. Somebody said, "How do we know each other?" We met at the parish I started attending.
It was funny. You became a catechumen.
Yeah.
And then I was like waiting for confession or something like that, and I like pull up Twitter, and it's like people you might know. Val. I'm like, what? Didn't I see that guy like 10 minutes ago?
Yeah. Yeah, that was. Yeah, I remember you, and then you added me like Instagram, and I was like, "Oh, is this guy's from the parish?" And I was like, "Oh,
it was a
shoot.
weird experience
Okay,
seeing your face on my phone like 10 minutes after you walk out the door.
yeah. Dude, they're spying on you, dude.
Yeah, the guy. Like I don't. It had to be like our phones pinged or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, like you guys were in the same room. You guys must know each other. It was weird.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I remember you added me, and I was like,
that's like next level after like you're having a conversation about kayaks, and now you're getting kayak like advertisements.
Yeah,
it's like this person you saw on the street. Do you know them?
Yeah,
I don't know.
dude, they're spying on us. Everything's a psyop.
Yeah.
Everything's a psyop.
Everything. We love the Jews. And I hate Hitler. And yes. Mark Zuckerberg, wow, man, he's hot lately. You see how he became hot?
Crazy shape. Man, he's definitely a real human too.
Yeah, he was human, is still human.
Yeah, he still is. Yeah, he still is human.
I get paranoid sometimes on my phone. I've had like weird experiences where this was I was also like I had gotten injured like 2 years ago, so I was like more home alone and felt useless and stuff, like on the couch waiting to like in recovery. And there was this one time I was on my phone, I was like typing some notes out, and then like something was going wrong where like everything I had like been writing a bunch of notes, like trying to like clear my like get my thoughts together, and it's like deleted everything, and I tried to press some stuff and like started typing out a sentence. I was like, what the there's demons in my phone, dude. Yeah, I was like, I'm not reading that. What is it? I sound schizo, but like it straight up was like it felt like the phone was talking to me through the text. It was weird.
I mean, you could be. I have a military buddy who like clears his entire phone. He has like all the trackers turned off. He like goes through like some back system on his phone, and like make sure like nobody is tracking him out. He's all like off all social media. It's like he only uses like YouTube sometimes. I mean, a
lot of people are saying like we should stop pretending privacy exists. Like you will just be free when you admit that privacy is dead, that you have no privacy. So, stop pretending it, stop fighting it. Just exist. Stop trying to live like you have this thing that your parents had. And what do you think about that?
I agree. I don't think privacy exists.
I mean, like you can do things to mitigate it. But I mean, I've even heard things. I haven't like looked into it too much, but I've even seen like apparently, how like people say like there's cameras all around. Like, how do you know it's not going? Or the microphone. I can't take the battery out of this thing. How do you know? Even if you like get rid of like the cameras and the mics, I've seen people say like even your Wi-Fi router, the way they can like use the frequency, they can like get 3D imaging based off like of where you are in the room, based off of like a frequency they can generate from it.
Really?
Or like even things like and this is things I've heard people talk about that I don't know if it's total tinfoil hat or what, but I've heard people that seem like they know what they're talking about it, and they're saying like even if you have like a bag of chips on the table and you're talking, like the vibration like moves the chips, they can do something where they can even like play back the tape with the sound being locked into the way the chips are. That sounds weird. It doesn't
really?
sound. This sounds really fake, right? But I heard
really
people on a
doesn't.
podcast talking about this thing.
I mean, it honestly, it really doesn't. Like the time we live in, like a lot of this stuff is believable to me. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like even most people I think would be surprised at how good our phone mics really are. Like you can test this out if you have AirPods. You can do this thing where it like actively listens. I know people who have spied on people because they like leave their phone in a pocket or a duffel bag, and they have their AirPod in. As long as they have Bluetooth, they can hear what's going on. And even if it's in your pocket, it's in a briefcase, anything like that, you can hear a conversation in the room pretty crystal clear. Like you think it's my pocket, it's mic's not up to me, you can't hear it. It's like it's surprisingly good. It could be in the bathroom and you're in the hallway and you can just hear the conversation.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I mean that doesn't surprise me. I mean all those like your FBI agent memes. I mean they might be reality. Like
Yeah. Well, I mean, even like with all the deep fake stuff and all the AI things rolling out, like it's gonna be a weird, intimidating, scary world to live in. I mean, especially just having your face online, like people can just make you say whatever you want with technology, right?
yeah, I mean AI is advancing insanely.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean I get memes said by some of my cousins like these like basketball memes of certain basketball like LeBron James like saying something. It's crazy how
And it's
realistic
just
it
the
looks.
computer, right?
Yeah. The only the only reason I'm like he didn't say this because it's like wild stuff. Like he's like dropping the N bomb in interviews and stuff, which like you probably wouldn't do, but it's like that's the only reason. Like it looks like he's saying it.
Yeah, I've got two daughters now, and thinking about like the world that's going to be normal to them. I mean, even like I talk to Gen Z people that are a decade younger than me or whatever, and like just there feels like such a gap, even just a decade apart.
Yeah.
Of like the things that they've seen on the horizon that they were in high school when the X things happened. I'm like I don't know. I think the doomer phenomena is on the rise, and a lot of the people are losing hope. You either like think it's clown world and you like make light of it, like privacy's dead, the economy's broken and we're all wage slaves. Let's have fun and enjoy ourselves, or whatever. Or you have the people that are super doom and gloom about it.
Yeah,
but it's weird. I don't know. I feel like the old man that's like, oh, what's wrong with the young people? I don't understand. I can't. Oh, can you help me with the email? Like, that's becoming like you can be 30 years old. I'm like, I don't know. I haven't updated my phone in 4 months. I don't know. It's so time consuming. I'm not going to keep up.
Yeah. You're realizing like these like huge disconnects. Like you feel like you always have to like catch up on like certain things that young people are experiencing or what they're going through. I think like the only reason why I'm like able to keep up with a bunch of it because I'm like in like group chats. Right, with like a bunch of like 20-year-olds like my cousins, and it's just like you just pick up on the language. But like if you disconnect like for like a month from
you can just
these
miss
people,
time.
You're just like
you miss a whole era.
Yeah, you have no idea.
You like go back and you're like you like post a meme from a month ago. People are like,
yeah, like you don't even know what's going on. You're like, what is this? Like, what does this even mean, dude? Like, what? So yeah, it's gonna be a weird world that. I don't have any kids, but like, if I start having kids, it's gonna be a real world they're growing up in.
That's very true. I've met a lot of Gen Z that fall for the climate hoax stuff and think we're all gonna die in 5 years because of climate change and all that nonsense.
Really?
Yeah, no, I've met people. They're like, yeah, like we're the last. They call us Gen Z because we're the last generation. We're all gonna die. Why have kids? Go party, live it up.
Yeah, I heard somebody. Oh, I think I heard Candace Owens talking about it. Yeah, so it looks like the brainwashing is working really well.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it's Depop. You can see a thread of Depop and all, like all of the LGBT stuff, especially the T stuff, all of the climate change stuff, all of the dink. There's so many things popping up in our culture are about don't have kids, live the life you want. It's all about lowering the population. It seems.
This whole like overpopulation myth.
It's the opposite.
Like, it's not gonna. Yeah, it's exactly the
We're
opposite.
entering into an underpopulation crisis. Like people aren't having the birth rates are plummeting. We don't have replacement. Yeah. We're getting into like extinction level birth rates.
Yeah.
It's people think, and it's like an enlightenment idea thing. Like the first guy that tried to project like the birth rates and to see like what could the Earth take with how the population.
Yeah.
That was like the 1700s or something like that. Like the first time this overpopulation theory was first introduced, and like you don't really have the variable. You don't know the closed system. Like there's a lot of people, but there's a lot of land and there's a lot of resources. And I really think that the more people, really, you have more resources, you have more opportunities, you have more people who can innovate. Like this trying to limit us and don't have kids and all that stuff. I think it's just the exact opposite of what we need to be doing.
Yeah, it's a bunch of nonsense. Like the birth rates are super low everywhere. I know like the Eastern Bloc, it's super low. Like in Russia, Ukraine, if you have kids, the government pays you money. Like some people, like I know some families that are having kids, just to make money. Like I know some
Wow,
families
like
with like
tax
9.
break stuff?
Yeah, so the more kids, not even tax, the
Like
government pays you
child-
cash, like money.
Oh.
Like I know some people that are like they just had their 9th kid, and the government like gave them like 30,000 because the more you have, the more they give you.
Is this like it's almost like a level of, I mean, it's like you're married, but it feels like weird, like prostitution. Something like that. I don't know. You're getting paid. You're getting paid to have sex.
It is, yeah. And some people are just like popping kids out. Yeah, like literally, like imagine like you're in Russia and then the government gives you like $30,000. You just had your 9th kid, dude. You're set for life. Like, and this is real. Like, you can look this up. Like, people are getting paid like bank for having kids.
You know, I mean, with all the things that America sends money to, I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Like even like my wife and I owned a business during KOOF. And we were being threatened with the carrot and the stick. They're like, we can give you this grant if you, take some jibbies and stuff.
Mm.
And we had our waivers and our religious exemption stuff ready.
Yeah.
But it was a struggle with me and my wife and talking to our priest. Like, you know, should we take this money? Is that us relying on the government? And he's like, well, I mean, they could send it to abortion. Like you could take it and give a part of it to the church or do whatever. I mean, I'd rather go to you than killing babies.
Yeah. Yeah, that would have been an interesting conversation. Yeah. Yeah, I know a bunch of companies were like rejecting religious exemptions too, which
Oh, yeah, people at our parish got fired
Really?
during the COVID stuff.
Yeah, which like is that legal or
I mean, it's technically discrimination, but I mean, they were fired. I know people were kicked out of the military.
Wow. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know quite a few people that, and one guy like he couldn't rank up, like he's stuck at what his current position because he refused to get the poke. So yeah, it was man. That seems like that was like fairly recent. That almost seems like it was so.
Yeah,
long
but it
ago.
feels like we're in it feels like a different world.
Yeah.
Like,
it was such a weird
for like
time,
a good
dude.
2 years, I was just glued to like what's going on, what are they doing, all these mandates, Fauci, the CDC, all this stuff, because it was like
Yeah.
directly affecting my family's life, like affecting our
Yeah.
business, affecting the people we're interacting with, affecting all of our friends. We have friends that we still don't talk to. We're like, it's just weird because they were super in the narrative and we weren't, and we were killing people because we were acting like normal human beings. So it's
It was
different realities people live in.
Yeah. Like Europe was like basically shut down, I remember. Like Italy was insane. Russia was pretty insane. Like Ukraine was pretty insane. Like they took that like super, super seriously. It's like Nadim says, read my chat, Wes.
Yeah, so I think this one. My design engineering class is an LGTV safe space project and will be graded by. I did engineering to escape that. Wow.
Nadim, do you live in Lebanon?
He goes to school in London, but
so he's
he
in
goes
the
back and
UK.
forth.
Okay.
Sounds like you're in the American Navy. I've heard some pretty bad stuff about what goes on the ships.
Who's in the American Navy?
Huh?
Who's in the American Navy?
I've heard things like in the American Navy that they have like story time hour or like weird,
Really?
like gay strips stuff on the ships for entertainment for the boys.
I mean, the Navy's pretty gay, so like
Yeah.
that's not shocking to me.
Yeah. Now it's just very explicitly gay.
Yeah, I mean, people always make fun of the Navy. They're like, "Where are you going to the Navy?" Yeah, you're gay, dude.
Yeah.
Spending time with a bunch
Where
of
did I
seamen,
go
dude.
wrong? My son joined the Navy. It's okay, honey. That's why we have the other boy.
Nadim and تعرف عربي?
What did you just say?
I was speaking to him in Arabic. Salam.
Yeah.
Salam al-Masih. Yeah, what do you think, like, because the birth rate in Muslim households
Higher.
is very high.
Yeah.
That's why, akhi, it's like very high as opposed to like, quote unquote Christian households. So yeah, what do you think about that? Because Islam, I think by like the year, I don't know, I think it's like 2050. I think it's supposed to surpass, Christianity as like a whole. That includes like Protestantism, Catholicism, and Orthodoxy.
Well, I mean, yeah, it's a good strat. It's a definitely going to shoot the arrows in your quiver into the future. But there's also I don't know how this is going to impact it, but there's a lot of people that say there's a lot of inbreeding problems with Islamic households.
Yes,
like
certain communities.
Yeah, they have, and I don't know how widespread that is, or if it's just in like parts of New York or whatever. But
it's a huge issue, I know, in the UK.
Okay, like because they're so insulary that they actually have a lot of birth defects because of how close they,
especially
interbreed.
Pakistani communities.
Oh, Pakistan, of course, of course, it's them.
Yeah, those Pakis. Yeah, I mean, UK is an interesting one because, like, it sounds like Nadim is from living in London. It sounds like a bunch of like a lot of the communities are essentially following Sharia.
Yeah, Nadim, you live in a Muslim country. Can you tell us what it's like there?
Yeah, what is it? What is it like in the Muslim country? Oh, we got.
Yo, what's up?
That's a guy from my channel.
Oh, is it? He's got
Warrior of Christ.
Isn't that like the Latin, like
that's the
Roman emperor that had like leprosy with the?
Oh, that was the
I can't think of his name.
Baldwin the fifth. Warrior of Christ. Which Baldwin is that? The one that had leprosy. He was like a king of Jerusalem. They use him because he was very anti-Muslim. King Baldwin the Fourth. Yeah. He's pretty based. He's pretty based.
Who are you thinking about having as your patron?
I think Saint Vladimir the Great.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, baptized Rus. Like, I don't know. I want that Slavic connection. I think it's gonna be Saint Vladimir the Great.
I've got one of his icons in my
in
my living room.
Yeah, I got one of his icons too. Yeah, I think Saint Vladimir. I thought it was for a little bit. I wanted it to be a guy named Saint Hilarion.
Oh yeah. I don't know his
of
story
Kiev.
too well.
So Saint Hilarion of Kiev. Well, so in terms of like to where they didn't want to, speaking on that topic, to where they didn't want to translate the liturgy into Slavonic. For the longest time, all the bishops or the metropolitans of Kiev, they were all Greek. They didn't even want, Slavic metropolitans. And Saint Hilarion, there was like this big controversy and sort of against the wishes of the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople and the Byzantines. Saint Hilarion was installed as he's the first Slavic metropolitan of Kievan Rus. So I wanted it to be him, but he's kind of very unknown. That's pretty much all he's known for. So I was like,
there's not a lot of biographical,
no, like almost nothing. This guy's the first Slavic metropolitan of Kiev. So I was like,
there's no shortage of Slavic saints to pick from.
There's a ton. Yeah, there was a ton to choose from, but I love Saint Vladimir the Great. I mean, throw away, burn those pagan idols, and Christianize, baptize all of Rus. So it's a huge event in, I think, Slavic history. So yeah, I love that.
So growing up around Orthodoxy, but not being Orthodox in an Orthodox country, coming to an America, not an Orthodox country, but coming into the Orthodox Church. What's that been like? Like, has it been? Because like I don't know too much about, like, you have your social media stuff, YouTube. Like, how long have you been doing like Orthodox oriented content?
So I wasn't really doing anything Orthodox oriented. It was just kind of like just generic polemics and apologetics, mostly against Islam.
Okay, yeah, I know. Lately, you've been doing like Hinduism.
Yeah, Hinduism and a few others. But that's pretty much all it was. It became very Orthodox oriented to where I was like, like the Orthodox Church is the one true church. But in terms of like, it doesn't. Oh, because I grew up in an Orthodox country, like it wasn't weird because, as a kid you know, even if you grow up in like some minority community within it, like you see Orthodox churches all the time. You interact with Orthodox Christian. You sometimes attend, like with your friends, you go to like some sort of Paschal liturgy service, and you're just familiar with Orthodoxy, like, because that's all you know. There is like is Orthodoxy, but then they're like these idolaters, and we're like these people.
Right.
So it wasn't weird. I think what was weird, or maybe like was difficult, is like flipping that mindset and being like be like, actually, I think we were the weird ones.
Yeah.
Like I think why did we do this? Why did we do? I think we were the weird ones. I think that was the only thing, but I think it's like it's a beautiful journey, like just rediscovering your roots.
Where did that begin? Like, what put you on the trajectory to Orthodoxy from your Baptist kind of charismatic?
Roots? So I started my master's in theology at Liberty University, which is in Virginia. It's like a Baptist sort of Reformed university, and it's a lot of like just it's your daughter. It's a lot of like, I don't know. It's like it's like a Protestant theological, degree. Like you don't get into too much like church history and stuff, but you take some church history, and I think that was kind of the catapult, is like reading church history, and you're just like, right, you're taking like this hermeneutics course, and then you're taking like this Protestant history course, but then you're like reading early churches, and you're like, bro, it's like it's two different timelines. That's weird. This timeline is so recent. This timeline is ancient. Like,
was there a lot of like the Constantine ruined everything, and then Martin Luther saved it?
No, it was very the professors were. I thought the professors were great at the university. They were they weren't trying to push any sort of certain agenda. They were just, I think it's because there was probably like Catholics at the university and people like that probably taking degrees. So they weren't trying to push an agenda. They were just kind of like neutrally would just lay out the history. And no, it was actually the opposite. Like they would like, they didn't really, they would like, Augustine, we love Augustine. He did this, that. This church father did this and that. So certain professors were like obsessed with certain church fathers. And then I was like, it began to like hit me. And I was like, well, like he didn't believe anything you believe, dude.
Right. Yeah. People quote Augustine because they can like try to find, from our perspective, certain errors he's made to like have like proto, Calvinists or whatever they wanted to like frame it as. But I mean, he was a bishop. He believed in the real presence. Like there's all these things that they don't agree with, that they're like just going to quote mine and say he believed what we believe because of this one quote. Mm-hmm. And if you actually look at him as a whole, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, he's like this. Yeah, he's like this early Calvinist, this and that. Somebody speaks Arabic in the chat, or
wait, where?
Or is he asking? Who's he asking?
Which part are you talking about?
Nadim said, "How do you speak Arabic?" Is he asking me?
Yeah, I think so.
I speak a little bit of Arabic. أنا بعرف شوية عربي. I just doing apologetics in Islam. You pick up in Arabic, bro.
Okay, so I was going through the catechism. I came across the term divine essence and divine energy. Can you please elaborate on the difference? I'm still learning. Okay, yeah, so no man can see God and live. No man can see the Father and live. So you can't see or participate in the essence of God. There's lots of analogies you can use to try to understand that. But we can participate in the divine energies of God. That's like the operations, the divine grace, the operations of the Holy Spirit. Like a common analogy is when you're sick and you need an operation, a doctor works on you and he can heal you, make you better through his energies, through his operations upon you. He can heal you, but you don't participate in the inner workings of who that man is. You don't participate in his essence, who he is. But his energies affect you and they change you. So we believe in deification and theosis, that the divine energies can participate. They can manifest in material reality. You can look at the light of Mount Tabor with Christ's transfiguration. That these this energy that made the apostles fall to their faces on the ground. That was the divine energies manifesting. That was this energetic procession. There's this uncreated light, and that's the energies are also God. It's not just like God is the essence, and the essence and the energies are both God. And like in St. Peter says, we participate in the divine nature. So we become part of the divine nature. We become participators in the partakers in the divine nature. So we would say that means we participate. We're interpenetrated by these divine energies. Just like when another analogy, I'm outside, let's say it's daytime, and the sun hits my skin and the warmth hits me and it gives me a tan, it gives me vitamin D. I'm participating in the energies, the solar energies, but I'm not participating in the solar essence. I'm not a part of the inner working of what the sun is. St. Athanasius, the first council, says, God became man so man might become God. Jesus Christ became man so we can become what he is by nature, by grace. We can become participants in the divine natures. Do you want to speak on essence energy distinction?
No, I think you touched on EED pretty well. Yeah, I mean, yeah, we don't participate in the essence. We participate in the energies. I was asked to do a video on this several times. I'll probably do a video breaking this down. But somebody mentioned David Erhan recently had a breakdown of it. Also, there's a bunch of great content on EED.
Gregory Palamas. I mean, one of the first things I read when I started becoming Orthodox, before I was even a catechism, I read a lot of Gregory Palamas. Went way over my head, way too early didn't have like any of the Orthodox phronema to really like be able to couch it in an understanding. So I need to go back and actually probably reread a lot of what I've read. But you can contrast the essence energy distinction with the Latin absolute divine simplicity, which collapses the energies into essence. There's only the essence. To us, the essence of God is simple. It's not. There's not parts in God. God is simple. He's not. There's not different parts that are segmented and unrelated in God. It's all like the essence of God is one, and the three persons of the Trinity share in the essence. But the absolute divine simplicity is that as well, but since they collapse energies down to nature, from our perspective, like how can the incarnation even happen if like how does the Eucharist? What is the Eucharist? If you can partake of, are you partaking of God's nature?
Yeah,
you're partaking of the inner life of God. Like for us, like the bread and the wine have been interpenetrated by the divine essence. By the divine energies, and we're able to participate in that. But we're not partaking of the nature.
Yeah.
Can God manifest himself through someone in the form of divine energy? How can we differentiate between this doctrine and Montanist heresy? You want to speak to that?
In the form of divine energy.
Can he manifest himself through someone in the form of divine energy? Can God manifest?
I kind of get what he's asking.
I'm trying to think. Is he saying like as an apparition or something like that, or is he saying like can God's divine energies work through me to like? Is that a form? Is like me participating in the life of the church and helping someone out? Is that participation of divine energies? Is that what he's trying to say?
I'm not really sure what he's saying.
Yeah, I mean that you could say the Holy Spirit works through people, and that as I am on my path of theosis and I acquire grace through humility, through repentance, through cleansing myself of my passions and acquiring the virtues, I acquire the grace of God, and I'm able to be, I'm able to bless other people, and because now I'm living in accordance with God's will. Like that's, you can read the saints. The saints are always. It's almost like C.S. Lewis is like Narnia. Like as you, like the king ship flows down to the animals and all that. Like it's
I guess
kind of back to Genesis in that. From
I guess he's asking like how, because the Pentecostals will say like, oh, the Holy Spirit is working in
God's giving me a word right now. Like,
God's giving me a word right now. I'm gonna, what is it called? Word of wisdom. I don't know, whatever they call it. How do we differentiate? Well, I don't believe.
Can you define Montanist heresy? Maybe that will help us.
Yeah. Well, Montanism was like an early 2nd century heresy that started with a guy named Montanus, and Priscilla and Maximilia, I think, is the other prophetess name. It was like one essential prophet who the heresy is named after, and 2 prophetesses, and essentially like they were very weird. Tertullian talks about them quite a bit. Eventually, Tertullian became a Montanist, and he wasn't like officially excommunicated and became a heretic. But essentially, they would have these like ecstatic like prayers, and they would speak weird languages, and they would like shout really loud, and they would prophesy. And so when we read the Council of Laodicea, I don't remember the canon. It's like canon 55 or something. Several church fathers, including some that were later deemed heretics, like Origen, Tertullian, they comment on the Montanist. They say they deemed their baptism essentially invalid for the reason that although the Montanists were like very controversial, like even like the Pope in Rome at that time, Tertullian, even the Pope in Rome at that time like thought they were like legit Orthodox Christians. So essentially they deemed Montanism a bunch of reasons, like their prophecies never came true, so they're false prophets. And also, although they baptized in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, the Montanists put such a huge reliance on their prophets and prophetesses. I believe it's Tertullian in the canon of Laodicea. Tertullian says, hey, they might as well be baptizing in the name of their prophets.
It almost seems like a
proto-Pentecostal sort of charismatic.
That, but also like dispensational. Seems like a or like chiliastic. You know, chiliasm.
Yeah.
Like
so they were
the 1,000-year reign, the 1,000-year kingdom, or now we're in the age of the Spirit, and that was the age of Christ, and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's Montanism. I mean, they would essentially do a lot of things. If you go to like charismatic Pentecostal churches, they would get up and go like, the Holy Spirit speaks, or they would come up to someone, hey, the Holy Spirit is telling me this. This is exactly what Montanus and Priscilla and the other prophetesses would do. They would go, the Paraclete speaks, and that was hugely problematic to the people. So I guess it sounds like he's asking like, how do we know if it's like genuinely like the Holy Spirit maybe speaking through us?
I would say live the life in the church, talk to your spiritual father, never be self-guided, acquire, you stick to your rule of prayer, acquire humility, acquire the virtues, work out your salvation in fear and trembling. Clean your noose. If your noose is clean, you'll be able to test the spirits and not be deceived. But I mean, I'm trying to think of it. Like, I think we answered it. But I mean, I think if Jesus Christ still has his body, and like when he met, let's say like the icon made without hands, like there's a napkin that like Christ washed his face with, and like an image of his face is on this napkin. And that's the divine energy is like passing from him to that. And there's like the Shroud of Turin as well. Like that's the energetic manifestation that we're talking about. It's like the light of Mount Tabor. It's like with all of our relics. We would say like they're interpenetrated with the divine grace. Like saints are interpenetrated with the energies. Yeah. Like
also, we read
Moses coming down from Mount Sinai has to cover his face because he's radiating with the divine energies.
Yeah. Also, we read was it St. Paul's handkerchief? Was it that people would touch and get healed? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so, the bones of what Elijah resurrected a man. Like,
yeah, so I guess to answer his question, yeah, God can manifest his energies through someone, I guess, if that's what it sounds like he was asking. But I think he was also asking, like, how do we differentiate between that and Pentecostals or some other charismatic, like, healing sect that says, you know, like, oh, well, I have the power of healing and I'm healing.
No, you're not bothering. We're just trying to answer your question as best as we can.
I mean, I would, about those groups, I would say, I mean, they're outside the bounds of the church.
Right. And part of it's just like understanding the tradition, living the life of the church. This is an analogy my dad loves to use. Like a banker, talking about bankers, a banker will sit there and like he has to count all this money and he's used to feeling the dollar bill and what it feels like. So when he touches a counterfeit, he knows what it is. Like living the life of the church, understanding what is of the church, what is orthodox, what's our phronema, what is what it is to be Orthodox, what our correct doctrines and dogmas are. That will you'll immediately know, especially as you're cleaning up your noose and you're being able to discern.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll just know.
And I think
you might not be able to articulate. You might have to have somebody help you understand why something's wrong or feels off. But
yeah, and also this language of like, oh, the Holy Spirit told me to tell you this doesn't really exist in the Orthodox Church. Everything is I did a short video on this. Everything is approached like very, very carefully. Like
it's sobriety.
Yeah, exactly. Like if I feel like maybe like God is calling me to something, like I'm gonna go talk to my spiritual father. I'm gonna discuss it with him. And at the same time, like when you read about like miracles and the Holy Spirit, or even prophecy in these monastic communities, like in Greece, for example, like if somebody like receives a quote unquote prophecy, they don't go out and just tell people this because this could, create pride and this, etc.
Oh, yeah.
They keep everything like within the community. So everything is approached very carefully, as opposed to like in Pentecostalism, it's like, I had a prophecy. I'm gonna send this into the group chat, dude. Like I'm telling everybody, hey, God is telling me this. Like,
come on.
Yeah, exactly. Like you said, like everything is approached with sobriety and careful, and also like if somebody outside the Orthodox Church that they're not an Orthodox Christian, they say, oh, the Holy Spirit is telling me that. I'm like, nah, I don't think so, bro.
If nothing else, it's dubious to me.
I mean, if somebody within the Orthodox Church tells me that, like, hey, I feel like maybe God is telling me to, I'll be like, oh, I don't know. Let's go talk to our spiritual father.
Yeah.
But if it's outside
because
the church,
you're not because not all your thoughts are your thoughts, and we are not always as pure as we can tell ourselves, and that the enemy would love to tell us that we are as, like St. Paisios was visited by Satan, and Satan asked him questions, and at the end of it, he was like, you've answered even better than Jesus himself did. He's like, bro, I'm a clown. Yeah. What are you talking? He's like, he wants us to feel like we are good, that we can perceive ourselves as holy, and that's how we fall.
Yeah, and I think that would be the issue with anybody outside the church. It's like I think they have good intentions, but they're outside the bounds of the church, and it leads to pride and things of that nature.
Basically, in short, anyone should not contradict orthodoxy and encourage heresy. I mean, yeah. Well, you can question and have doubts and let's reason together and read and talk to your spiritual father. Go to catechism. Keep learning. And there are things within orthodoxy that are up to theologumena. There are places where there are things that are not dogmatic.
Exactly.
You can have your own. You can have opinions or see that the church fathers have a variety of opinions. But there are certain things where we say this is dogmatic, this is true, and outside of this is not true. And that is
it's funny. I
is.
I was reading a book by Eve Tibbs, and she gets into young Earth versus old Earth, to where like this is not dogmatic. Some Orthodox Christians,
like evolution, that's a different that comes in so many issues. I said this recently, like old Earth, young Earth. I think young Earth makes much more sense. I think the text just makes more sense. I think a lot of the scientific stuff makes more sense. If you believe in old Earth, there's nothing explicitly dogmatically contrary. Like if you have an old Earth and you look at the dogma, it's compatible. There's no contradiction. There's no heresy. But when you start adding things that often go with old Earth, then you start getting into polygenism. You start getting into all these various errors that come with evolution. Yeah. That I mean, I know Orthodox people that believe in evolution, and it's like kind of just like I trust the scientists. I trust what academia says. And it's like, but. I mean, a lot of the evidence, even just from a evidentialist view, Father Sam Rose says that evolution isn't scientific; it's philosophical. They are philosophizing about things they have no access to, and that even on its face doesn't make sense, and a lot of the evidence doesn't point to it. Anyways,
I mean, it's like when at the end of the day, evolution is like, let's just wait and do nothing, and like something's gonna happen. It's like
so many issues with it. Just like if you try to reason it out, so many issues with, like, just logical issues with evolution. Like I was thinking about it today, like abiogenesis, if life came from non-life, if organic life came from non-organic life, why doesn't that keep happening?
Yeah.
And it's like, they're like, oh, because the conditions that were needed to bring about life is different than the conditions needed to sustain life. How do you know that? How could you possibly even like dare say you know that? That's insane.
Yeah, I mean it's all philosophical. It's the whole like non-life or life coming from non-life, like that's just what, like, when we have these conversations with like atheists, and it's like, dude, you believe that life came from non-life, dude, like.
But then
you're essentially like.
But they also say that like no animal will be born from another animal that doesn't, like, a mammal will only ever produce mammals.
Yeah,
that's what they'll say. Like I can't remember the word. A clod, something like that. There's some term in evolution where it will only stay within this branch or whatever. A marsupial will only ever give birth to a marsupial. Well, then where did marsupials come from?
Yeah.
It had to come from a non-marsupial. So that's exactly. Contradictory.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's ridiculous.
This is a big question. Ape with agency. How do you know for sure? I mean, that gets into the difference between existential and normative authority. And at the end of the day, from an existential lens, we all are, especially anybody who claims to be Christian, is operating from a revelatory perspective that we are being guided by the Holy Spirit. But the way you get out of the, and this is a very quick way to talk about this. You get out of the existential issue by going to the normative authority issue of what is the revelation? Is it consistent throughout history? Does it contradict? Oh, hey, tons of stuff in Protestantism you have to say contradicts what the Bible says. That you have to say that like with the invisible doctrine, with the invisible church doctrine, or the ecumenist spirit, that there are many, it logically necessitates many Christs, many different bodies of Christ, and that's it. Or that it says that the Holy Spirit will guide the church into all truth, that the church is the ground and pillar of truth. If you think, I know Protestant friends that are like, oh, I think each denomination has stuff wrong and stuff right, and like we're all just like, I'm the ear and you're the foot and you're the left nipple, and like, we're not being guided into all truth.
Yeah,
okay,
clearly
like,
not.
Yeah. How do you say we're all guided?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, like, collectively together we're in all truth, but that's not mutually exclusive thing. These are actual true disjuncts.
Yeah.
A cannot also be not A.
Yeah. Yeah, it's self-refuting. It's self-contradictory.
I mean, tag is pretty killer as well. That's a logical proof for God.
I think it's okay to have periods of uncertainty with a good. I think it's okay to doubt. I don't think doubt is unbelief. I think doubt is like how you grow. You ask questions.
You also can do things with your doubt. You get to choose what you do with your doubt.
I think if you're stuck, or if, let's say, if you're in a community, let's say, and like your spiritual father is like, don't doubt, dude. Don't ask. Like, dude, you might be in a cult. Like, you should be asking questions. And you should be figuring things out. And
also, like, Orthodoxy really respects your free will. I mean, like, we have our dogma is weird. Like, growing up Protestant, like, dogma was a really bad word. Now it's like, oh my God, thank you for the dogmas. Thank you for like allowing us to actually know what the truth is, and we can just say it instead of like, those are secondary issues. It's whatever. We're all Christians.
Yeah.
I'm real cold now, guys.
We all believe.
I lost my thought.
Christ died. That's all that matters.
Yeah, that kind of thing. Gosh, what was I saying?
Yeah, but you gotta live the life of the church. You gotta participate in the sacraments. Father David talks about this a lot. Like, you really have to live the life of the church. That's why, like, orthodoxy isn't like Western Christianity to where it's like systemic, theology. Like, right. We follow a prophetic theology to where like certain statements like. We don't say for certain, dude. I think you have to experience. You have to experience Christianity. Yeah. By participating in the life of the church.
Right, and that's a big difference between a lot of Western mindset and Eastern mindset. Like a lot of Western stuff is like, especially like the evangelical stuff, is basically like an incantation. You just say this prayer, you say the sinner's prayer, and you got your golden ticket. You're in. You did the magic spell. You're in. Like. Like a lot of the penal substitutionary atonement stuff is like it's all legal status stuff. It isn't the essence energy, like we are participating in the life of the church. We are participating in the energies of God. Like in so much of Protestantism, it isn't an ontological change. It is a legal change. Like God, grace in a lot of Protestant sectors is unmerited favor. That's a far cry from Eastern Orthodox. Grace is the divine energies, the operations of the Holy Spirit. Like that's a world of difference between. It's just like how God looks at you or whatever.
Yeah. I had a question today about PSA. Let me see if I can find it. I'll read it. Somebody was asking. It was an Anglican. He was inquiring into orthodoxy, or just curious, and he was asking on PSA. Let me read his questions.
So also, I don't know if everybody in the chat, don't be chronically online. Don't. It's like Father Turbo says, like internet orthodoxy is like your vitamins. You can't live on vitamins.
Yeah.
Go eat your steak and potatoes. Go be fed, be well.
Yeah, actually,
it's better, much better. You should be in the church. You should be participating in the life of the church, and you can be online if you want, but you shouldn't be online unless you're inquiring or whatever. I mean, that's different. But if you are, especially if you're baptized, and just go to church. Don't make me slap you. I'll do it.
Yeah, because there's a lot of LARPers online that I know that like run these Orthodox pages.
I know,
but like they're not actually Orthodox, dude. Somebody they say, excuse my ignorance, I'm just now learning this from your story. Eastern Orthodox rejects PSA. How does the Eastern Orthodox Church interpret references to Christ as our propitiation, or in other translations, atoning sacrifice, translated from the Greek hilasterion? Not arguing, just want to learn.
Yeah, I mean, well, not that I'm the best one to talk about this specific topic. It's not that we disagree with any sort of atonement. It's just the post-schism Latin, starting with Anselm and Thomas Aquinas and moving on from there, a penal atonement or ransom theory turning into a penal atonement theory, and then going into all the Reformed theories. And then it's all just legality. Christ paid the price. We're bought with the blood. I got my golden ticket. That's not the Orthodox phronema.
Yeah.
Like even like there's like Paul talks about like the debt that was paid. A lot of it has to do with who was the debt being paid to. Like Christ, when he died and he descended into Hades, he trampled death by death. So one way that Paul talks about debt isn't like, he uses the word debt, but it's almost not like it's not like a monetary thing. It's almost like looking at like our sin is like this gap between like what our nature is. Our nature is created good, and where we've fallen from, and there's this debt between it. And he, through his taking on human nature in the incarnation, like in his death and his burial and his resurrection and his ascension to heaven, like he pays that debt by restoring humanity to what it is. And that's like a way of talking about it. Or we can talk about, the substitution and even maybe in like a legal court system way of talking about, we can use those language, but it's not just that. Like so many reform people just look at what Christ did on the cross did through like a court of law, where we'd go like, that's maybe like a facet on the gym, like a way to be able to talk about, just like I said, with the essence energies, like, it's not like, oh, we look at everything through the lens of what a doctor does. It's like, that's just an analogy to help us tackle the thing. I mean, there's way more going on. That might be just one way to engage with it.
Yeah, I mean, generally the Orthodox model is the Christus Victor model, but we don't necessarily reject all these other atonement models, like you said. But PSA is just very, monetary or transactional.
Vending machine.
Which just it doesn't make any sense. Like who. And also, like, who's the payment be made to, like, the Son to the Father? So what you're
that's where the Trinity. It gets to really heretical stuff, like saying that like God is wrathful and Jesus, like it's sympathy for atheists with that, because it's like the atheist critique is, so God really wants to kill us, so God killed God in order not to kill us, and like Calvinists especially be like, the gospel starts with wrath, and you're just in the hands of you're sinners in the hand of an angry God, and all this stuff, like. Doesn't logically make sense. If Jesus is dying on the cross to appease the Father's wrath, And it's like God's not subject to human emotion.
Yeah.
Like
I mean,
he paid the debt to death. He conquered death. He destroyed death. He ransomed us out of the grave.
yeah.
But propitiation isn't about appeasing God. It's not about earning unmerited favor, changing the way that God, turning God's wrath into favor. It's not.
Mm-hmm.
There's no change in God. He loves us. He views us with love.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what. Like C.S. Lewis says, the gates of hell are locked from the inside. So it's really about repentance. Is us being able to come to God and have that like kenosis where we're able to filled with the Holy Spirit and achieve theosis. It's not, I said the Lord's Prayer or whatever, and now Jesus died for me and I'm covered with the blood. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not just that transactional thing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's not. I mean, you fall into some sort of anti-Trinitarianism, whether it's Arianism, or I mean, you're just an anti-Trinitarian if you hold to this model of the Father pouring out His wrath on the Son. Like,
Right.
It's heretical. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, I went to a summer camp when I was Protestant, where I was taught that that Jesus on the cross was damned to hell and was totally separated from the Godhead. He stopped being God while he was in hell.
Yeah.
Well, they didn't believe in the herring of hell, but for the 3 days until he resurrected, he was no longer God. He was totally dead.
Yeah.
And God the Father totally turned his face away. Is confession
that's wild.
not similar or related to penal substitutionary atonement? So like I said with the PSA stuff, like just the Western conception of it is like I think we've gone over a lot of the issues with that. But I mean, yeah, there's confession and absolution, and that's part of working out your faith. And it's a second baptism that you're able to be washed clean from the sins that you commit while you're on your path, and it's just it's there to humble you and keep you accountable and not be self-led. It's part of Orthodox obedience. Do you have anything to say about how confession's related to that?
No, I think Nadim left a pretty good comment about it.
Confession is economia, and through the energies we have been forgiven at the moment, not every sin you will commit later. Right. Yeah, like you often hear like the most clean, the most pure you'll ever be is when you're baptized.
Yep.
Yeah.
Which is.
Well, is there anything? I'm freezing. I think my wife got dinner.
Cold.
You staying for dinner?
I
gotta go?
I gotta go. Yeah.
All right, man.
Somebody keeps calling me.
I gotcha. Well, anything? Do you want to shout yourself out? Tell people what you do, where they can find you. I left links in the description.
I mean, just valorthodoxia or orthodoxia, just on all social media platforms. I mean, just go check it out. It's a lot of it's mostly a lot of polemics right now.
Bulimics?
Polemics.
Like people throwing up?
No, it's like criticism of other positions, other
I
faiths.
see.
So
polemics.
I mispronounced polemics. Yeah. So great stream, guys. Go check it out. Yeah, a lot of polemics. Some apologetics lately. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. Like and subscribe.
Yeah, like
So
that here too, and to Val as well. And I was recently monetized. You can add. You've been seeing these custom emoji. You can add a membership. You can send super chats. You don't gotta. I should have led with that. Maybe you would have, but
Nice.
you could. You could.
Officially monetized.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
man. Yeah, thank you. I don't have the ads yet. I need like another 500 watch hours or something like
Oh,
that.
for the ads?
Yeah, but I have
okay.
all the membership stuff. Let me know. Well, any custom emoji you want? I think we got to like 19 members now, so we've unlocked some more. I'll get some uploaded. But if you got any suggestions, any JPEGs you want to send me or whatever, just let me know. Anyways, peace out, everybody.
Thank you, guys. God bless.
Yeah.
And be orthodox.
Yeah. Become orthodox. Bye.